If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle.
Yeah, this is Houston. We're copying. Everything is go here.
We shall fight on the beaches and in the streets. We shall never surrender.
I'm in it just to rewrite history, cause I'm in the mood to label us the leaders of the new school. This ain't for the radio, can't find this on YouTube. This the type of killing that these critics ain't used to.
You're a group of happy rebels. You've said no to the rules of the game and the regulations of the day. You've said no to the conventional wisdom. You're all originals.
In this day and age, I got time for innovation, time to be creative, time to make the waste of my time on critics hating. Flattered by your opinions, to show you I'll just embrace it. Now watch.
I'm amped up, man. Ready to rock and roll with Colton Call today here on 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. I'm Jeremy Barker. This is Colton Call. We've known Colton Call for a long, long time, right?
Yep.
Little bit. Colton Call is one of the funniest sons of bitches I've ever met in my life. First off, it's hard. You piggyback, you ride you around a lot. I mean, it's okay, but you're fun. It's fun to have people like that.
Compact size.
Fun.
Yeah, fun
You're
size.
fun size. But hey, man, you've had a very interesting life. You've been fire.
Yep.
And by the way, we'll get into that talk in a minute. You have to bleep that part out. We did not want to get into that at all. But anyway, you've done military.
Yeah.
So kind of, we're going to just highlight really where you've been. So Colton Call, Ogden City Fire Department until yesterday. So, hey, that's why we have to do this today.
Yeah.
I want to get that, hey, nitty gritty, heartfelt emotion a little bit. We'll get into that, as well as you did a little bit of Stenoy. A little bit at Clinton, a little bit of North Davis Fire,
I did.
A little bit of Hill Air Force Base Fire.
Yep.
Ping pong ball fire departments are
a
lot of the time. Hey, I'm chasing a quarter. All I'm trying to do is get food on my table and make my car payment and have enough money to get to work again so I can still be broke at home a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Which is being fixed, which is really fun to watch over this last year. A couple years for Ogden City, but even Roy City, the one that we've been really hard on for the last little bit here locally. Big, huge raises. So props, Roy. Good for you. Keep those good guys coming, right?
Oh, yeah. Roy's a great department to work for.
Roy is...
You've made it even better just now.
Just now. Hey, they're really helping, and people need to pay attention.
Yeah.
When it comes to pay scales, and I think we covered this in the past, it's much easier, even though it's hard to get across cities' budgets' minds. But if you're looking from the top with the top pay scale, that's what people look at front, is what do they pay?
Yep.
What does their benefit packages look like? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're going to get everybody applying based initially off pay, if you want the best, you better not be the bottom payer. And unfortunately,
Can't be.
You get the bottom group. Everybody that pays more is generally getting to cherry pick.
Yeah.
And we're stuck at the bottom. Weber's actually super, super low. That they have to address it. They need to use somebody other than Andrea Fisk to do the wage analysis. It's the wrong person. And you have to find the right person with the right comparisons. And I don't mean use Brigham or use Roy or use Riverdale. It's easy to cherry pick the bottom three competitors. That is asinine way, the most mediocre, excuse me, I'm going to refix that. You're going to have to cut that right there. The most mediocre way to do it, right?
100%.
Looking at that.
Yeah, you can't start anywhere from the bottom. If you're gonna go in a circle, you're gonna battle with that bottom, and you're gonna get a bottom spot. Then you're gonna get bottom of the barrel.
Right.
You don't want that.
Well, and if you think about pro athletes, so here's the deal, Michael Jordan. We've been doing some wage analysis, and there's a lot of really good bench warmers out there, and the average pay based on population of pro players is going to be on the tell. So what we're willing to offer you is the bottom of the tell.
The same thing as Ostertag got.
Same thing, I guess. I don't really know sports, so I probably shouldn't walk into a sports conversation with you. But nonetheless, I just don't think we're going to get Michael Jordans applying for a job that's paying bench warmer pay. And it's not that firefighters are necessarily relevant in a basketball deal, but it is relevant in work ethic, in effort, in physical fitness, in
100%.
knowledge, in skill set.
If you're looking for a Michael Jordan, but pay like
we don't know those names.
Ostertag,
or the people at the
then
people.
you're going to get Ostertags.
That's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, the fire world, and Andrea, I'm sorry, but the way we're doing wage analysis at every department and even at Weber is the complete wrong way. right? And I love Weber Fire. They're a great department,
Mhm.
but they have to reevaluate the way they're doing their analysis, right? We don't want to be bottom pay. We don't want to be looked at like, who's left? Are they just doing pulse checks to hire? Okay, I think I can do it. Right. And I'm not saying we don't have great people, but what's unfair is we have really great people that really need to be compensated like really great people.
You'll start losing them. You'll lose those great people that you already
And they
have.
don't want to leave. We
Right.
just lost Clint Shaw to Roy. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah.
Good paramedic, right? He didn't want to go. But now, guess who's swinging? Roy City.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've been beating him up for a year.
Yeah, but they finally stepped up and made some changes. The chief there, Chief Golden, now he wants to make things better, and he's on his way to do so.
So
took a step towards that.
Right. And it's working, at least in that element.
Mhm.
There's every department has things that need to be fixed, but that's a big one. People can deal with some stuff
Oh yeah.
if they're getting enough money, and they don't have to be beat up at home because they don't have enough money to bring home with them. Right.
Right.
Just had a conversation with one of them just a minute ago.
Yeah.
Getting beat up by his wife. So why?
Poor fella.
For you, Ogden City Fire, dream department, great place to work, tons of calls. I know why, but is it money, or was it dream, or is it both?
I can't say that it's 100% money because I the same exact reason as every other fireman is staying in the position they are is because they love the job. They love the people around them. For me, it was the dream, 100% the dream.
To be a fireman?
Oh yeah, loved it.
And you still do, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'm glad I was able to walk away from Ogden City with no ill will. It was, I expressed how much I loved Ogden City. It's a great city to work for. You got chiefs that are willing to go to bat for you when the pay's low, and they recognize problems. But for me to step away, I had another dream.
Which?
Run a business.
So, entrepreneurial dream. You've been doing it for a while, pretty successfully with Crown.
Yeah. It's managed really on its own, but it's never been able to, we've never given that attention to take it to the next level. And Jody and I had decided that we either need to go all in or we need to sell it. And I had mentioned to you one time is that I'm interested in selling it. And actually trying to do that
is a full-time job too.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do that. And,
you mean you didn't want to go through the effort of doing it or sell it really?
Sell it really. I didn't want to go through that selling process because then it's like I'm just giving up on something, and I'm not.
I don't know necessarily that selling is a giving up position, but what I feel like you may have thought is if I sell now, I'm not selling a package that I would want to say is a deliverable at its full potential.
Oh, 100%.
So all you're doing is selling a half-baked sheet of cookies.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you have the perfect recipe, but you just haven't left it in the oven long enough and paid enough attention to it.
100%. But then if I would have, if I got it to that position where it's like, hey, now it's a full sheet of cookies, why would I then sell that then when it's even more successful?
Sure.
So it was a hard decision when me and my wife sat down and discussed everything, and bless her heart, she has dealt with a lot of my changes, like bouncing from department to department for various reasons, but none of it was really what I was looking for. I loved the job, loved it, but there was just something more I was looking for. And
you didn't know if it was department based, if it was goal based, if it was
right
money based.
Right.
You're just trying to fill whatever void you didn't know what it was.
Yes. And when I recently had surgery, I had a lot of time off these past 6 weeks, and it showed both of us that, hey, this could get a lot of attention with one of us working there full time. And so
you saw some pretty good changes just over the last few weeks while you were paying attention to your baby that you just kind of left in the room and saw if it had a full bottle or to see if it needed a diaper changed.
Correct. And finally we decided, this can go somewhere.
Good.
So we both decided with my military, we already have health insurance and that's all taken care of, or retirement, that I was the better fit. And we dove in.
Good. So I screwed up a little bit earlier. I said, let's hear your history. And then I went into my rantage, which I do a lot. Sorry. Go through where kind of your background is and what led you down the path of public service, because that's where your life has been 100% directed, at least as long as I've known you.
Yep.
And I'm sure much, much longer. And your other brother's public service based.
Yep.
So kind of laid out.
Starting out, I at 18 joined the military.
What division?
Loved it.
Or what department, I should say?
Army. Loved it. The National Guard is a great career when you're first starting out and you're kind of lost.
Sure.
I was one of those lost 18-year-olds.
Direction.
Right. Zero direction.
Discipline.
Needed it. And discipline was huge. I definitely needed discipline. My brother, the one that actually in law enforcement, he actually came to me with the idea of us joining together. So that
How much older is he?
7 years.
Wow. So
Way older.
he's got a walker now, right?
Yeah.
Diapers.
It's his hip.
Yeah, bless his heart.
Yeah. But he does it though. He does it.
My grandpa did it too till he was like 94.
He's on his way.
1 foot in the grave.
Yeah.
You got that, Luke?
Love you.
So military at 18.
Luke came to me, said, let's do it. And I was in. I was okay. You know,
I trust you.
he's doing it. I'm doing it. Right. Thanks, big brother. And been in the Guard for 17 years. Been deployed. Been kind of all over. It's great. It's a great career. Loved it. When I came home, I actually had started dating my wife before I left, and she was working for Roy City as the administrative assistant, not a secretary. Don't say that to her.
Got it.
I'll get in trouble. She was working there, and she had friends there. They're all close.
Royce again.
And when I wasn't sure what I wanted my career to be, I thought it was going to be a cop because that's what my big brother was doing. You want to follow in the footsteps of your idol.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying he's my idol. I can't tell him that. But I thought I wanted to be a cop. And then I went out and hung out with firefighters. They all had trailers. They all had these nice trucks. And I was like,
those guys are rich.
they're camping. I am in.
They have a lot of days off.
Why don't they work that much? Right?
Right.
So, from just hanging out with these guys and seeing how relaxed and how cool and how much fun they were having, I was in. And every one of them would talk about the job as a not as a job, as a passion. And it was something that they were vested into that they truly did love.
So when you speak of passion really fast, I think it can be used in two facets. One, this is why employees stay and love it.
Mm-hmm.
Two, again, not to beat up cities, but I think it kind of gets weaponized, right, by the city, not in a negative connotation, but it kind of is. They know the passion that fire, police, EMS have for the career, for the service, and they kind of capitalize on it, in my opinion, to not care about turnover.
Yeah.
Right? They say they care, but they can care and show it. And
Absolutely.
they can say they care and not show it. It's, I don't care what you do. I do what you say.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So actions speak louder than words. Yeah, we care about attrition. We need a raise. Oh, they're hiring around the corner.
Right.
So
right.
Ultimately, it can be manipulated passion.
Mm-hmm.
Or the city can manipulate the passion the firefighter and police and EMS worker has to make you stay longer because they know you have a brotherhood.
Right.
You have what's the word I'm looking for? You have a deep willingness to serve, right?
Yeah, just that brotherhood alone that you have.
It's binding like family.
Like
you're not going to leave your older brother.
Right. Like the one we were just talking to. one of the best firemen I know.
Right.
And wouldn't leave because he loves the people around him, right?
But his wife wants him to.
He's
getting pressure at home.
Yeah. But he wants to stay because he has that passion, you know?
Right.
And I can see it getting weaponized, which is which is hard to say because you don't want
By the
to think
politician,
that.
right?
Yeah, you don't want to think that, but you know it is. And
They're like, are they really going to leave? And
right.
it gets down to the point where Roy City just experienced and
Yep.
Weber's starting to experience. And I use this local level, but I think every city, every state, and I should say every city, but most cities in most states in the public service area are generally financially underappreciated.
Yeah.
Right? To where it's really hard to serve and live in the same city you work in.
Yeah.
Especially around here in Utah. It is expensive and you have to drive out of state to really have the job that you want.
Yeah.
Which is truly unfair.
Mm-hmm.
So when they can take advantage of the passion, the willingness to serve, that's the deal I'm talking about. And they have to wait till all of a sudden they are seeing an enormous amount of attrition, right?
Yeah.
So they can see this giant leak of employees leaving. And finally they get to the emergency level where Roy was in the high double figures percentage wise of people leaving, and they had to stop. They had to fix it.
See, and when I left Roy, it wasn't because of any money.
Well, pretty much
mine
everyone was comparable, right?
Right. At that, and they were, but my reason for leaving Roy was 100% the SWAT team. I had made the team, and it was something that I loved. I was super excited about, and to keep going with the SWAT team, I did have to go to Ogden, which luckily at the time they were hiring, and Chief Slater came and caught me at the gym, and talked me into it, and I was like, I'm in, huh? Yeah.
So still you were on SWAT up until you left, or
Yep.
did you leave SWAT just barely?
No, I just barely left SWAT.
So yesterday too.
Yes.
So you can't do either.
Nope.
You quit one, you quit both.
Yep.
That's hard.
Yep.
So you got Army,
Mm-hmm.
fire.
Yep.
In fire, you do SWAT.
Yeah.
Is Crown Promotions, which is the t-shirt company, printing company, marketing agency, kind of a promotional based business.
Yeah.
Is that your first company on your own?
Yeah. Yep. That's the first, I guess, entrepreneur
First swing
adventure
Sure.
that I've taken.
Good.
And it's been a ride.
How long?
7 years, going on 7 years.
Dude, that's a big hurdle.
It is.
So when you took it over, a lot of people wondering, how do we start in business? Your wife works full time at Roy City.
Yep.
Good job.
Great job.
She doesn't like it when I call her the park, or what did I call her? Lawn and garden department.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's Parks and Rec.
Yep.
Right? Is that what it is?
So,
Don't call it lawn and garden. That is not okay.
It's not a thing.
It's
Don't
not a
call
thing.
it. Don't call that.
Parks and Rec.
Yep.
So she works at Parks and Rec, right?
Yep.
You work fire.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making a good enough living. You've got 2 full-time incomes. You have benefits if you want from both locations.
Yeah.
You've chosen one. One has a full paycheck. The other one has a discounted paycheck because of benefits. You can get by.
Yeah.
You decide to start Crown Promotions from scratch?
No, so with Jody's job, she has to do some shirts and jerseys once in a while. And at the time she was going to Crown t-shirts for all of her shirts, and kind of built a good relationship with the owner that owned it prior to us. Well, he decided that he was going to sell, and Jody was one that was just happened to be in the office, and he said, would you ever be interested in buying it? And Jody started asking questions. Let me check with my husband, and we sat down and had a good conversation. And at that time, we could afford $60,000 on a loan.
So how did you, $60,000 for the average single family here in our area, in our income bracket, at the group we're hanging out with, is 2 years worth of net income.
Yeah.
Right. So when you look at that, it looks like a giant, overwhelming chunk.
And it sounded like it.
It is.
But then you start looking at the numbers of what they were kind of producing, that Crown T-shirts
Like
was
it can
producing.
service the debt.
Yeah.
So explain to me, a guy like you and Jody needs 60 grand. Where do you go? Friends, families, or fools,
yep,
right?
Exactly.
So how did that process
100%.
look?
At first, it was a lot of like back and forth, like, where do we go? What do we do? How do we do it? Like, we have to have a loan. We have to have something. Do we ask our parents to sign with us? Do you ask? I mean, we were
So
still
did
pretty
you address
young.
the bank to try to get the money?
We
out?
did.
Okay.
Yep. And luckily, the bank looked at it like, as almost an investment, but we already had money coming in from the established business.
So how does a bank look at that? So they're going to take the financial statement from Crown T-shirts.
From Crown T-shirts, yep.
And they're going to say, this is the debt service. This is the net operating income. I mean, I know how it works, but just lay out what this layman first time business operator, it's pretty scary. I don't know what that means and what you need to do. So how would you do that?
So starting out, you're going to go and obviously ask for the bank, but then the bank's going to want to see what that income's, what's this business bringing, how long it's been established
so you asked
for.
The company for financials.
So, and he was more than happy. He was super cool. His name was Chase. Good dude. Gave us all the financials we needed. I looked at them and I didn't know what they said. I just seen numbers. I was confused.
Like, whoa, those are a lot of big numbers.
Oh, this looks good.
Right.
I like the number.
Yeah.
And so then I took it to somebody that knew what they were talking about at the bank, and partly my wife, 100%. And my wife at first would be like, so this is what this number means.
I believe you. Yeah.
Okay. So went to the bank signed off on it.
Your local credit union, the bank you always use, or did you have to shop?
The America First.
So the same credit union you use on day-to-day operations.
That's it. And
right. Good relationship with your banker before or no? Just a random?
Nope, just random.
You're a customer that's been there for a while.
Just a customer that uses America First.
Okay.
And
how did you pitch it? What application? So you go in, I'm looking for a loan application for financing a company. Or how did you address that to the banker? I
remember using the words successful company.
Now there you go.
Right?
Might as well start for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot for the stars. And I remember just laying it all out.
So office manager, this is what I'm looking at doing.
Yes. Yep. And once we laid the numbers out and made them look pretty, then that was the hard part.
Collateral?
No collateral.
Just Crown.
Just Crown.
Crown was the collateral.
Crown was the collateral. No collateral on the outside.
From hi, I'm Colt to here's your application. That takes a while.
Yep.
Your financial background, your credit history. So you have good credit at the time.
And so that was the problem.
Okay.
We didn't think that they were going to give it to us.
Credit reasons.
Right.
Okay.
So instead, the old owner was kind of made a deal, and we helped out where he would carry the loan and we would pay him.
Got it.
And that right there sealed the deal. Then we were in.
So did he end up carrying the deal?
Yep.
Or did America First?
America First said no
because of your credit.
And you're not going to give up on something that you feel like you want, right?
Sure.
So
you went back and said,
right,
I got declined, dude.
Like, how do we do this? How do we fix this? Carried the loan for us.
How long to pay back $60,000?
5 years.
5 years.
It was 5 years.
That's a great deal. $12,000 a year,
Yep.
$1,000 a month.
Easy, right?
Interest free.
Interest free.
Okay.
Nope.
You did pay interest.
I don't remember if we paid
So this is a Jody question. Jody,
this is a Jody.
Will you prep your dude
her. I
here?
can text her.
I'm just kidding.
I don't believe we paid interest on it.
And if you did, it was negligible enough that it didn't.
Right. And it wasn't even a thing. So, $1,000 a month is what we paid. And he didn't care if we paid it early, didn't care. We could pay off the loan early if we wanted to.
No early no prepayment penalty,
Nope.
Of course, especially on low interest, right?
And we ended up doing that. We paid it off year 3.
Which is nice.
It was awesome.
Monkey off your back.
Yes. Yep. And it was that time like we thought we were like, hey, this is
going to be easier.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't.
It doesn't get easier.
So I'm going to stop right there just to kind of framework where you're at, right? To help other people that may be looking at even something like a t-shirt company or a food product or a cup or whatever, right? Like with Hayden Wadsworth, all very young in their age group, very young in their assets.
Yeah.
Right. And we beat ourselves up. Sometimes we're 25 and we don't have assets or financial net worth when it comes to cash, or you're 40 and you still don't have a lot of assets and you don't have a lot of financial net worth. It's all irrelevant. It's all a starting point regardless. The only advantage the 40-year-old is going to have, hopefully, is life experience that leads him to make some different choices that hopefully will eliminate some bad choices. I guess it should say, hopefully less frequent than the 25-year-old or the 24-year-old. There's some damn smart kids like Hayden Wadsworth. Crap. That kid is one impressive guy. Joe's
Smart.
kid. Yeah.
Smart.
All the way across the board. Loved it. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And his dad too. I mean, apples don't fall far from the tree, right?
Right.
So we come in, firefighter guy, bad credit because it's hard to make your bills on time as a firefighter, right? And we all have bigger dreams than the 1991 Toyota 4Runner. We want to drive a 2005 Dodge Cummins or a Chevy Duramax, right? So
big truck.
we always buy over than what we can afford, but the bank said we can. The mortgage said we can. But they don't always take into consideration that you've on SR22 insurance, that your insurance is really high and this, because it's not really in part of your debt ratio.
Right.
So we look at it and then here we sit and say, well, look, I don't have 60 grand. I went to the bank. I have bad credit. I got declined on the loan. Now I'm going to have to ask my family. And that gets kind of sticky because they're going to want either large percentages or they're going to always want to know how's it going. And sometimes it's not going good and you don't want to share the facts. So you lie or you exaggerate the difficulties into a less difficult position because you don't want people to worry about you. But if they gave you a little bit of money, they're thinking you're not telling the truth. It causes these separations and divisions, whether it be a direct family member, your in-laws, or your best friend.
Right.
Right. It's hard to let your best friend down.
Yeah.
So you don't want to make them feel like you're stressed. But what happens, and I experienced this in my shed company years and years ago, when I was like 22, I felt, get on top of the world, have what looks like on top line a ton of money. And then the bottom line is winter comes and then it shakes out the top line into where's your extra money to pay through winter when you're not building stuff, right?
Yeah.
But at that young age and the arrogance level that I was living in, I never reached out to anybody that could help me through the decision-making process of how to do it. I'd borrowed money from just my mom or sister or here or there. I didn't want them to know I was in a bad place. And I felt like if I asked anybody else, they might get back to my mom or sister. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was like just enough to make payroll, 6 or 10 grand here, right? Like, man, so I got to just kind of huddle up in a ball and worry myself out of this. And then finally you just give up motivation because you don't have any daylight. And we're too proud to go ask for daylight and say, hey, look, when really you could bring a problem book to somebody that knows a little bit. In hindsight now, my problems, just a breeze to solve.
Yeah.
But it seemed like this giant mountain, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that, and I don't mean to get too sidetracked into the problems at the end, but on the front, it feels like a giant problem. We have this goal.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like Crown T-shirts.
Yep.
And then we have a $60,000 mountain before we walk into the Crown T-shirts ownership role.
Right.
But what you did there was, number one, you went to the bank, which is the easiest money, hardest to get, easiest to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They need some financials and easier to let down. They'll just take their stuff back.
Yeah.
Right. And so emotionally between friends, that stress doesn't exist. Yeah, your payment stress does. But that doesn't work. A lot of people at that stage immediately give up at bank 1, or they try bank 2, and then they try bank 3, then they give up.
Yeah.
Right. But there is so more solutions. There is so many more.
Many more.
Family, if you want, I would suggest push that away. Friends, I'd suggest push that away because those don't always tie together well.
I wouldn't.
The Wadsworth family is an exception as well, right? So there's some that work.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's credit cards, which I discourage because it's 17%. The best way, number one, to sell a business is cash out.
Mm-hmm.
But 2, actually, let me rephrase it. The best thing about selling a business is to sell it.
Yeah.
So they're looking the right answer to sell it. 1, they'd love to have cash out. 2, payment options, which does 2 things. 1, they can start collecting the revenue from your payment on the value of their company. 2, if you screw up at month 59, it's all theirs again.
Yep.
So they made $59 extra $1,000 and still have Crown T-shirts. So that's a little bit. If it was me, I'd put a reasonable amount of interest, not high, but a reasonable amount of interest into the acquisition costs.
Of course.
Right.
And that's we ended up getting lucky with this deal. Somebody that was willing to carry the loan.
They wanted out and drove it from another.
We didn't know any of those steps. We never owned a business. We never even thought about owning a business. So we didn't know about what steps. So we went to the only place we knew.
So when you look at a business purchase, everybody, it's much like buying a house. It seems different, but it's a lot the same.
Yeah.
You have owner financing available, bank financing available, hard money lender financing available. You also have payments. You also have value.
Yep.
Right. You can have the business appraised, and they'll say, hey, what is your net income? Even though they have some assets, and assets aren't always worth what that you feel like they're worth. There is a depreciation that goes to an asset. So even though you say you paid $100,000 just 5 years ago, the depreciation occurs at $20,000 a year. It's still not worth anything on their books.
Mm-hmm.
It may have a value, but it's usually a fire sale value. So don't be offended when someone says that $100,000 CNC is really only worth $22,000. No one's trying to beat you up, but the bank has to tie something to it, or you do, and they both should be pretty equal. If that's what the bank's willing to put in, that's all you should be willing to put in.
It cannot be emotional.
Keep your emotions out.
Yeah.
These are a lot of the things you've learned. We've had a lot of talks about this.
Oh yeah, yes.
You get up and down, and you get excited and down, just like us. But you can't let your employees know,
right?
Because then it changes the attitude, the excitement, the drive from your employees. If their owner's concerned, they're like, "Is my check even going to clear Friday?" Right?
Yeah. And at one point, one of our employees might not have realized it, but we were afraid that their check might not even arrive. But
it's normal, early stage. It is.
It was a lot of learning. Just like that. It's just like trying to get a loan. Where do I go? What do I do?
So there's a couple things I want to commend you on it. One, to just push to the second step is where about half the people fall out anyway. So you went to the second step. And the nice thing is you got creative enough to look at owner financing before friends, families, fools that may hurt your reputation locally.
Yeah.
Right. So owner financing is, if I was to do it again, I'd work for an owner financing swing first, as long as it was reasonable.
Yeah.
And then I'd look at bank financing or other alternative methods of financing. For most people, you can do that on a startup. You can do this through your vendors, through your equipment dealer. There's ways to have them, they want to sell the equipment too.
So many ways.
Right? So maybe there's a way you can work direct without having to worry about having perfect credit yet.
Yeah.
Hey, CNC salesman, I can't qualify for this loan. I want to pay you this much money. It can be a used machine. This is what my goals are. This is what I can service on the debt. These are my pre-orders. A lot of this, people don't think about. You're lucky when you buy an existing business. But I believe you should create some type of demand with your goal first, because you walk into a lot of negative cash flow from day one. Yeah. Unless you have outlets on day two.
Yeah, we had 0 outlets.
So they weren't selling any shirts yet.
Well, he was coming to the end of his selling because he was selling the business.
So he quit marketing accounts.
Yeah, so he wasn't
So you bought an asset sell. It wasn't a business sell.
I'd call it an asset sell.
So basically what you bought from him was no real carryover clients.
Right.
Just strictly the screen printers, the embroiders,
yep.
And those were worth $60,000.
We literally had a week with him to learn this entire business from, I would be in the back producing shirts. I'd be screen printing. I'd be up there until 1 a.m. trying to, up on my phone on YouTube, trying to make sure I'm screen printing right, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's perfect.
0 idea what I'm doing.
So I guess the question is, did you have a book of customers?
No.
He had 0.
What was in his email, but
he didn't have reusing accounts, people that came back and forth.
No, there was some schools around there that would use him once a year. Those were his bigger accounts. So they were the ones that just kind of.
So that is a book of business, right?
Back.
So you didn't have a blank sheet. You had a few that was like, what would they call reoccurring revenue, whether it be every year, right?
So it was, he did have, but he did not market. It was kind of a word of mouth and just those few big customers that were reoccurring.
Okay.
So it was still a book, but it was a small book.
Right.
It was enough.
But it's a kick.
Yeah.
It's a kick, which some people are like, I'm going to start this t-shirt business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to put all this money in and now I'm going to go find customers. Yep. In hindsight, when you start business, if I do this business, maybe I'm going to see, would you use me if I do this, 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 and this? This is what I think it's going to cost. This is where it's going to be. I'm not 100%, but kind of get a few check marks.
Yeah.
What would your volume be? Look at what your market demand, if it's going to be extremely geographical, whether it be city, county, state, or is it going to be nationwide or multi-country, multinational, I should say.
And so we were county, like we just depended on what was in the county, and that was kind of it. And we never really, we put in the hours at the very beginning that we were just, I have pictures of my son sleeping on a shopping cart because full of clothes.
Sure.
And just being up there, we had fun. There was times we had fun, and there's times that I'm sure Jody wanted to strike me.
Sure.
I don't know why, but
let's be honest. I've watched her. She striked you a lot. Just kidding.
It's a thing. It hurts. Don't tell her. But it was a different adventure, and there was some times where you're like, I don't want this anymore. What are we doing? For how much?
That's like once a week or twice a week.
Oh yeah.
Early on.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Or every night when you go home, like, oh my gosh, do I really want this stress?
When you're getting into bed at 3 and you know you got to be up at 6, and you're going, what is happening? This is business. This is owning a business. And for a minute, it is. It 100% is.
In a minute, we mean 5 to 6 years.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So don't shorten like, hey, they said it was only going to take a few
7.
minutes to go on this next step, but it's several years.
Yeah.
So, it's a stressful, it's an exciting, you work through these giant emotions. Like, look, dude, I just got a $20,000 purchase order. This is insane. More than the last 2 months combined.
So stressful. And
right.
So exciting.
All the same.
Oh yeah.
And you'll experience whether you're selling shirts, ladders, doors, cars, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have these emotional roller coasters. And honestly, Annie yesterday, she played volleyball 4 games, won 2, lost 2. She served great half the time. She hit the net the other half the time. Right.
Yeah.
So she loved it, but she had some frustrations. I said, hey, honey, look, when we're out on a lake and you're floating around in a canoe and you have just effortless water, meaning you just have still water.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun for an hour. Then this mastercraft freaking surfboat goes by and it almost tips over your deal. It almost tips over your canoe. You're about out. You better start paddling, at least for a minute.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was trying to give her an example from is like players versus environmental. Like one, someone can come into your life, whether it be friends, families, in a direct interpersonal relationship, or into your business, that is just a wake that can nearly dump your business. Meaning someone comes in, buys something from you, large order, bigger than you've ever had, and then stiffs you for it. So you have smooth water. This is going to be easy. The wake comes in, almost tips you over. Now you have to paddle. Yeah. You thought it was smooth sailing. But smooth sailing is really boring.
Yeah, way boring.
Way boring. So you get a little wind in a sailboat. Now you're cruising. And then now you have heavy seas. And that's not boring. It's extremely difficult. And if you're in a canoe, and not the sail, I know we're going back and forth. But if you stop rowing, it's game over and you sink.
Yeah, you're done.
But if you just keep rowing, that storm, it's an old adage, right? The storm shall pass.
Yeah.
But it's hard to remember when we're 11 like Annie, or when we're in the middle of the battle with our business trying to figure out how we're going to get through the guy that just stiffed us, right? This was everything I've made, and now we're going to go out. Well, if you paddle and you go find the next customer, you'll get through this storm, and it may be a year long. But one thing you can't do is let that experience in your rearview mirror overtake your windshield, like we said in the past.
Yeah.
Talking to my painter the other day, he is holding on to a year ago's customer that stiffed him. And every time I talk to him, bless his heart, he still can't get over how much money he lost last year. Well, he's losing money every minute he's telling me the story. And emotionally, he's losing money.
Yeah.
Just in work ethic, he's just let it be such a weight that he feels defeated from something that was long ago. And here we sit with 100,000 square feet of building where there's plenty of work opportunity.
Yeah.
But lack of emotion because he's so depressed about something that happens. Got into a little deal with Verizon. He feels like they owe money because his phone's got messed around with. You want to chase bad money, you can. To me, it's not worth suing anyone over bad money.
Yeah.
Right? Even $100,000. We had this argument with our insurance agent. Got told we were getting $126,000 for my own freaking brother-in-law, by the way. My own brother-in-law's brother. Right? We get a paper that says it's $126,000. Comes back and they said, we'll settle for less for 25. 101,000. Yeah, we could sue him. Yeah, I want to sue you. I do. But emotionally, I want to just chase you down and wring your neck.
Right.
I get it. Right. You present something. You're my brother-in-law's brother. right? I love you, but I don't in business that way, right? I don't love you enough to look at 101,000 for Murphy door and say, hey, or Murphy ladder, say that's okay.
Yeah.
We understand there's some misunderstandings, but there's also misrepresentations.
Yeah.
We could have spent a lot of time chasing that guy down. It's $100,000. It's a lot of money for everyone, right?
Yeah.
What was the best way? We let it sit and idle. We talked to attorneys, just to be full open. Yeah, we'll take it. This will be something. Will you win? A high likelihood of really getting what you're looking for.
Yeah.
A few 18 months down the road, I'm going to need all this stuff. I'm like, dude, in the time it's going to take me to chase this money, and I'm sure this is what this insurance company does. I am sure that that's their plan anyway. They know how to rake the system. They're all dirty, right? But I would lose more money in lost opportunity by chasing spilled milk. Trying to put a 1.5 year old spilled milk back into a cup, you're not getting the same cup of milk.
No.
Right? It's not worth your effort.
Yeah, it's just gonna diminish it the harder you fight, something like that.
Yep. And the reason I bring this up is in the early stages of business, it's a really good opportunity for bad players to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
You have no life lessons. You don't know how to say no. You're saying yes to every job. You're not looking at their credit. You're not looking at their ability, their past history. It's not interesting to you, but their order is. So this is when bad players can really come in and take advantage of you. And people feel like sometimes I'm too direct, I'm mean, I'm curt. I've already seen those players, and I have no problem saying, you know, I really like you. Let's do frickin' dinner. Can I buy that? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't lend you a nickel.
Sorry.
But I'm so going to buy you dinner.
Yeah.
Right. And they get it. It's off-putting a little bit.
Yeah. And I've never had, so my problem, I think our problem was at the beginning was yes.
You say yes to everyone?
Everyone.
Yeah.
Why? Because this is money coming in. We're doing great. But then we'd get the order and we'd be like, hey, can we do this really? Like, I don't think
so. Underpricing?
Oh, well, no, not even like products things we're doing that we didn't even know we could do, like taking an artwork that, like, yeah, we can do this, but this artwork on our printing machine is 7 colors.
And that's 10.
But this is 10 colors. Right. But we already said yes. So now we've got to call that customer and they're not going to be super excited. And
or outsource it.
Yeah. They're not going to be super excited and they're going to tell us no and then never come back.
Right.
Or they'll tell us yes this time because they need their order. And then next time they're going to go somewhere else. So it was a lot of lessons learned like that. So not necessarily, I don't think bad money. The only way that I could say it is through some of our mistakes. We would mess up an order because I didn't know how to print and it was crooked.
So what would you do? I have to say something. We got a crooked printed shirt from him right here, but I'll give him this. He printed it himself and I'm super proud of it. And I think half of it is just a jackass joke and he wanted me to do this on purpose. So I get the joke. I got it. Okay. I get it. Good. I get it. Touche. My 11-year-old has to point this thing out. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, frickin' Colt. This is just the banter that we live with every day. But nonetheless, I get it.
Good time. But when those orders went bad,
so how did you solve it? You just call them and say no?
No, we had to redo the entire order. It was our mess up.
So how'd you do it? You just did it, right?
Yeah.
Did you argue, ask for money back because it was more costly?
Nope.
So in business, you experience this. Like, hey, look, you're going to work with a vendor. They agree to do something that is beyond their scope. Which, by the way, I highly encourage when customers come up to me and ask me if I can do something. My answer is yes, all the time. And here's why. I may not be able to do it, but I have friends that can. So when they say, can you do this? Instantly, I start thinking of my sphere of influence or people that are in my world.
100%.
Like, yeah, I can do it. Well, then we try to do it first, and that gets costly, takes a lot of time. If that fails, we go to our sphere or our circle of friends, say, can you do it? Yes, I can. Great. I want you to do the job. You give them all of it, right?
Yep.
You come in and say, here's the caveat. I want to watch. I got to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to teach me how to do it. And I'm going to buy the right tools, software, or whatever it takes to do it. It gets your employees pretty pissed off, however, because now they're not working in their zone of comfort.
Because they're starting to get out of their zone.
Complacency kills your business. Constant change is not always the right answer, but forward momentum with changes and slight corrections is.
Yes.
You always have to try, even if the correction takes you in the wrong direction. A quick correction on that can get you back. and you've just learned a lesson on what not to do.
Oh yeah, and the lessons along the way we learned were very beneficial. Yeah, we failed, we lost some money, we got behind, but those lessons were so much more valuable
Than the win, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, and sometimes that's what you need. You're on a win for so long, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in with a different product, a different idea, and says, "Hey, can you do
It's
this?"
growth.
Yep, I can.
And I lost,
Right,
but I learned.
But you learned,
Right. So how would you do any of this if you didn't try? You don't.
You don't.
Right. So like Annie, when she thought there was a server there that was just awesome, and she was frustrated, and they had the same age group, and she does a great job. I said, well, look, Michael Jordan on the Bulls he practiced more than anybody else on the team, and he was the best anyway on the planet. And people want to be like Michael, they don't want to practice, right? And without knowing how you failed, and I'm not saying that you're a failure, that you just weren't as good as her. Now you know what you have to do and what you want to be and set your marker to. And then you think it's not fair that she can serve so good.
Yeah.
Right. There's no difference in say, hey, come to my house. Don't give them a map. And she tries to get there and she can't. But if you've been there before, it's pretty easy to get there. So we look at other people that have and got through losses, and we think that's not fair. These guys seem to navigate rough waters like it's nothing.
Is what they're showing you.
Yeah, because you didn't see how many times they've navigated their way through rough waters. And so I think a lot of the time for me emotionally, when I felt defeated or I felt defeated in the past, I look at other people like, man, it is totally not fair. They have friends, they have families, they have the easy way. And they may not have any of those, but on the outside, we have to find an excuse why they're getting through it easier than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, to be honest with you, it's none of our business what gets it through. Ultimately, we don't know what it is, but we can't look at it that way. We still can't discredit the fact they've been down rocky roads.
Oh yeah.
And they know why hey dude, don't go down that shitty road.
Right.
All right, you're going to go. And some people are really kind and say, hey, Cole, don't do it.
Yeah.
And then other people are like, we'll see how he fares.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, with me quitting Ogden, I'm getting, it's mixed across the board. It's all right. Good luck. You did what? But really, then there's people that I have in my corner going, hey, kick ass, man.
We just had that today in here when you were in our front room.
Yeah.
You heard the same thing, dude. I still want to do that. I just don't know how.
Yeah. But
they love fire and they're torn. Their wife wants them too.
Yeah. And that's what I was going through. And if I could get somebody like that and just get them alone for 10 minutes and be like, look,
here's the deal.
I've done this for 6 years now, going, I have something that I could do that would take me and my family to new heights.
To a little bit more financial freedom.
Yeah. But I loved something. I loved where I was at. I was on the SWAT team. I was in I was a firefighter,
doing EMS calls.
Yeah. Loving the transfers.
Yeah, right. That was for everybody, right? Understands the inside.
But it was something that I loved. When people ask you, hey, what do you do?
Oh, instantly they say I'm a fireman.
I'm a fireman.
Right.
How cool is that?
I think they advertise it more than any other career, though.
And if you
doctors and firemen,
right? If you listen to how a firefighter truly says it, they're not like, I'm a firefighter. Yeah, I'm super. Yeah, I'm a firefighter. They go, I'm a firefighter.
Yeah. Are you ready?
What do you do?
Right.
Oh, it's not firefighting.
Yep.
You're thinking. We all think it.
Do you know how they know? You know they're a firefighter.
Oh,
they'll tell you.
Yeah.
They'll tell you every time, which is I'm guilty sometimes.
Well, it's not true though. That's not true. They make the other person ask, "Hey, what do you do for your living?"
Yeah, they want to bring it in.
Oh, Murphy door, cool. I'm a firefighter.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm a firefighter.
And the sexy voice.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, truly, the career in fire is super, and I think you could do 25 years.
Oh yeah.
It just depends on where it is. But if you have to subsidize your wage, and you're trying to figure out how do you rub two nickels together, there's alternatives. And there's ways to look at it where your family doesn't have to sacrifice as often.
Oh yeah.
And there's ways to look at it as maybe you don't have to work 2 fire jobs or 3 fire jobs.
And that's what I was just going to bring up is how many firemen do you know that are currently a firefighter and have some sort of either side job, side gig, or they're a firefighter in a different department. Just a different department.
Yeah. I think that there's that, right? There's 2 jobs or their wife has a good job. So there is some fire guys, Hadley, where they can do 1 job, right? And that would be the ultimate dream.
Oh, that's the ideal.
Right. That is the ideal. If you could just do that and have your days off and really enjoy family, school, activities, then the 48 hours isn't a big deal. But when you have to take 48 hours at work and then do another 96 hours at work to try to pay your bills is where the family really starts to put the pressure on your passion and say, you choose which one you're more passionate for. Are you more passionate for fire? Or do you have more passion for me? Which one?
Right.
And they're really tough conversations.
Yeah,
right?
That's where it gets hard. And you don't ever want to see that, but it's there. It happens daily.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not fun.
So when did we meet? When did we go to Snake River? That was the first time. Probably 2012 ish.
So
it was about 2011 even. 2011 or 2012. So it's been 10 or 11 years.
I was in Iraq then, so it was probably 12.
So anyway, since then, what's fun with you is your mind has the exact an entrepreneur mind. What I mean is every single day I talk to you, you have a different idea of what else would be an awesome business.
Yeah.
And most entrepreneurs I know have that same kind of format, right? But there's the idea basis, and then there's the do basis. And I'm not saying do every idea, right? So I think it's really healthy to say, I have this thought, and I have this thought, and I have this thought, to kind of exercise what you have the most interest in, and then hone in on what truly is going to keep you entertained and that you absolutely love. Because if you don't, when it gets shitty, you don't want to sit there in a shit pile because you hated it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. You've really got to look at something that you're going to really enjoy. So bouncing through a list of 1,000 business ideas, even though your friends are giving you crap about, dude, are you going to make up your mind? You've given me 1,000 different business ideas, and you're always say, don't say do, right? There is that element, like be done saying I'm gonna and do, but there is the exercise.
Well, and that's actually, there is this guy that I know in this building that I think for the last 3 years, honestly, probably the last 3 years is I'm gonna, and I would say that every time to you, to this guy. No.
That's what I've given.
So I would come in and say, hey, guess what I'm gonna do? What are you gonna do? Emphasis on the gonna.
Yeah.
Like, well, all right, that's fair. And when I finally realized it is when we were sitting in the office back here and you said,
dude, I'm tired of hearing I'm gonna.
I literally told you, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to quit my job. This was a year ago. And you said, okay. I was like, what? Like, I'm tired of hearing I'm gonna. What are you actually going to do? Like,
something. I didn't care if you're going to quit or
like
whatever.
either put your cards in or play the sand, like do something.
Right.
And that honestly got the conversation between my wife and I going, and Jody was like, well, let's take a deeper look at it. And it finally started that conversation of
what does it look like if I do?
Like if I do, what does that truly show me? And what's the outlook that could possibly happen?
Right. So you can weigh it out.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage starting businesses with a secondary income anyway. I really highly encourage, don't just say, hey, look, I'm going to quit fire tomorrow and I'm going to do this.
Right.
There is a period, and I've said this before on the podcast, but I waited till we were at a $5 million annual revenue when I left Roy, or trending towards that year, we'd close out at 5 million. So how I looked at it is, look, once we're doing $400,000 a month is when I feel confident enough to leave Roy. And I know that number seems really big to most people on an annual wage, but there's a lot that goes into a $400,000 monthly top line.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like it. The shakeout is enough to say, hey, I can pay my wage, not to have a secondary income, as well as afford insurance, and still grow the business to where I'm not stifling the company's growth by taking money too early.
Right.
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 So there's a massage period. So when I said, I want to also tell everybody that when I said, I'm tired of hearing I'm gonna, or I'm gonna, this is what you say a lot. It wasn't about quitting fire or not.
No.
It was just say, hey, you say you're going to do a lot of things, but I'd really like you to do what's best for you. And you're going to start believing you when you start doing what you're gonna.
Yeah.
Right. It has nothing to do with what you do for me or what you're going to do, in my opinion of you. There's nothing. I don't really care what you end up doing.
And I
I just want best.
I've never even thought about that like that way. I just know that, I mean, it's still like, even though I did it, you still walk back there and go, 8:00, about time you show up to
Yeah,
work.
look, I'm eating lunch when you get here.
And I'm like, son of a
It's
bitch,
nap time.
I was up at 5 a.m.
What's really hard when you think you're going to be self-employed, things you start to believe, oh, I can sleep in, I can go home early, I can go to my kid's game, and I can do all this. And yes, you can. Is it the right thing to do at the right time for your business? You should always go to your kid's game.
Yeah.
I don't care what position you're doing. Whatever activity or whatever your kids are involved with.
Oh, yeah.
When you're self-employed, you should carve out that time and give it to that, because that gives you that little bit that you need, because your business isn't paying you money.
Right.
But that gives you that, right?
Right.
There's that freedom a little, but it doesn't mean that you're going to Mexico twice a year. Doesn't mean that you're going even to Lake Powell, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. You can't steal from the business in the aspect of stifling it in growth because you're not giving it the time that it needs to grow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like taking the sunlight away from a plant, right? Or stopping watering it.
Yeah. And that right there, you saying just that the time aspect of, you've got to have that discipline on your own, because who's going to make you?
There's no one.
Nobody. Who's going to like, hey, I got to be at work now at 8:00 for shift change. I've got to be there, right? Or I'm going to,
You have to
there
be
will
the
be
guy.
penalties, right? The penalties, there's penalties.
They're
are
still there. They're just not
They're
being
just
told out loud.
different.
Yeah.
They're just different. Now, when I come to work at 9:00, I possibly could have hurt my family.
I was going to say,
in
wasn't it
the-
11?
No,
Was it
I was here at 7.
Yeah,
I even come in and turn the lights on and move stuff around so you know that I've been here.
Okay.
That's not a joke. I do that. I really do that.
Well, first to work, last to leave, right? Whether you're doing it here
Right.
or at home.
Yeah. And so those there's different penalties, because now if I fail, could I go back to Ogden? I hope.
They know better now.
Right. As a problem. So maybe I could go back, maybe. But
You can't count on it.
Right. What if they do wage change and now they're the highest paid and everybody's going to Ogden and I've got to go now to
be the boot?
Right. So now my penalty is if I fail, this business fails, I fail my family. And I think putting in that
perspective,
like that's all in. I'm all in. Now I can't, right? I had that money coming in because of my second job, and Crown was just
icing on the cake.
Yeah, it was just kind of taking care of itself and a little bit of kickback and great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why do that? It takes time away from my family. It takes time away from my wife. It takes time. At times it's caused, has your business ever caused heartaches between you and your wife?
Oh yeah, for days and months and years, right?
Right. And it can be a problem, it can be a burden, but it's how you approach your business. And it got Crown's now to the point where we've put, I mean, prior to this, we've built it, we've advertised more, we brought in more, we hit $300,000 in sales.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We were pumped. Like, hey, we're on our way. But then the following year, after we hit,
this was a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, after 300,000, we went back to 250.
Yeah, complacency.
And
COVID.
Right. COVID was awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, I blame on complacency.
Yeah, comfortable.
Yeah, not
look,
just,
dude, my car's cruising. I got cruise control on. And then you forget to look at the gas gauge.
Right.
Right. You're like,
yeah,
dude, this thing's rolling. And you're like, well, wait a second. I didn't change the oil, didn't change the air filter. I didn't check the fuel. And all these things start to go wrong. You haven't catered to your There's every element in a business that you'd have in a car operation. Like, and I don't mean that to be confusing, but you have to pay attention to the ball bearings.
Oh yeah.
The grease zerks in every corner of whatever it may be. Right.
That car isn't now, well, I can take it to the mechanic. No, you can't. No more.
You were it.
That's it.
You're it. There's a few mechanics out there. You can hire a temporary CFO or a part-time CFO that comes over. You can get operations officers that can come and look at it. Consultants that come, dude, they are expensive. And when you're already struggling, when you need a consultant, it's really hard. So the best time is when you're really on an upstroke and you can kind of do it. That you choose who you can learn from and you have them come and do it. It's smart when you can afford it. But most of the time, if it's your negligence that causes the council to need to come in, That's not going to fix your problem.
And that's what my problem was, is it was my negligence that was causing
Stifling.
that drop, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, wait a minute. What just happened? So I learned, had to learn, right? And then you give that attention back, and then all of a sudden you're back to 300,000. Like,
in just a minute, right?
Okay.
So that's what kind of happened with Roy. When I finally got to see a pulse of Murphy Door, where it was starting to have an average of 80 pulse, right? We're like, hey, look, this thing, it's going. And thank God for Von Dreheim, because he was my magician and taught me a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Right. He's like how to trust and how to listen to others and not always have to be the driver, and trust who you hire, have faith that they're doing the right thing for your company, even on refunds when you can't afford it. Right. You have to trust a lot. So he helped a lot. But then I noticed every time I came to work, my daily revenue dropped. If I was gone to work, I'd come to work. The next day, the money was up, and you could watch our graph, and it was like up, down, because we were doing 24 on, 24 off for 4 on the modified Kelly. So I'd look at our sales graph, and by the way, when you say that, it's a couple $1,000s a day or whatever. So it's pretty easy to see 2,000, 0, 2,000, 0, 2,000, 0.
Yeah.
You're like, and then it gets up to $4,000 or whatever on your working days or whatever, and you're averaging 400 grand. So you get to the point where you're 20 grand a month, or 400 grand a month. You divide that by 22 working days, that's 20 grand a day.
Yeah.
Well, if you're doing $20,000 in a day, and then the next day you notice it's 8, and then the next day you notice it's 30, the next night you notice it's 10.
Right.
You're like, what's the difference? What's the variable? Then all of a sudden you had days off, and it was like 40, 40, 40, 40, 40 days on. And I'm like, it's costing me a grundle to go to Murphy or to go to my fire job that I do not want to give. I love that job, and I didn't need it for the money, really. Like if I needed an emergency fund, I had it, which I didn't have to pick at. But ultimately, I see that my negligence, or my complacency, not negligence, my complacency in not watching numbers, and what my non-participation was costing the growth. I stifled growth. I stifled revenue. And I'm like, hey. And Polson, as much as I give Polson a bunch of crap, there's a lot of the reason I give him crap. But still, I've told you that story before in the past on the apron.
Yeah.
That was the biggest eye-opener that I've truly ever had. And Jason, I don't give you a lot of props, but this thing truly was a mind shift, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to a person after work, Jason is full of good things.
Seeing what's crazy is I can already tell you the full story, because that was also an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
And hearing it is like,
you mean when I shared that story, or that same?
You telling me that story, what Jason told you.
Yeah, it was super, super, a lot of wisdom that came from that. And so for those of you that don't know it, we have in his example, he used the universe, right? And he used a big, heavy rock, which is my family. Mm-hmm. And then he showed an example of another. So let's call this the big rock. The big rock.
Yes.
Right?
The big rock.
That's my family. This one is Murphy Door. And the little teeny rock would be Roy City Fire. Right? And he said, this is your universe. But right now, your universe should be centered on the biggest weight, which is family. And then the lighter weights can be at the top. But what's happened, where Roy City not made me, but my contract, my agreements was I'd be there on a certain shift, which meant I had to be here on every day that was on my calendar. Totally fair. I agreed to do it. Yep. That's my shift calendar. Well, that ended up being the deciding factor of when Murphy Door got attention. So it went Roy City Fire, Murphy Door, then my family got what's left over. And he goes, you realize that this universe can only spin so long with the weight on the outside. It needs to be the middle, and then the lightest weight on the outside, which is Roy Fire. You really need to sit down and think about how much longer your wheel can spin with your family being last.
Yeah.
So that was just game changer. And I'll be forever indebted to the guy for that.
And it's huge, because, I mean, regardless of who you are, what you do, or
it's the same. Right?
It's the same thing. Are you focusing on the wrong thing?
Right.
If you're having a problem with connecting with your kid, well, what are you focusing on? Is it your kid? Probably not.
Right.
But I mean, once you truly figure out what your rock is, then everything else you can
kind of work around.
Yeah.
It. And then it won't spin off as bad.
Yeah. And that's where I was when we had decided that I was going to quit my job, is that,
family was the outside rock.
Well, I didn't know what was, because certain weekends I'm at drill, certain times I'm at SWAT. I'm with my family tonight. 8:00, SWAT call came in. I still have to go to fire, and then I'm trying to figure out.
So you were in the exact same universe. Your family was the outside rock, got whatever was left over from everybody else's demand.
And that was it was really hard to hear. And luckily I have friends that can point it out and go,
well,
what's your rock?
Yeah, that came from someone else, right?
I was like, gosh, dang it.
And here's the deal. He also, to add to that story, he says, when your universe is spinning, if the weight's on the outside, when you lose the outer rock, the biggest weight, the whole thing falls apart. Right. So here's the other thing. The more time you make available to other people, they'll take it.
Yeah.
So as long as you're taking a SWAT call, your drill, you can't really, you're contracted. And then you have all these attentions that people want of yours. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're willing to give it, they'll take it. And truly, the power of no is big.
Oh yeah.
We have to learn how to say no. And it's like, hey, no, my rock is here. My commitments are here, and there's no's. And then we'll slot in the yeses, and these are my availability.
Yeah. And this is to where it is still fresh. Like it's still, I was
yesterday.
Yeah. I still have to finish a shift.
Right.
So I was expecting to feel different. Like we were talking to
the
guy earlier. You don't want to leave. Why? Because of that weapon, that passion you have for the job and your friends around you,
your shift, your guys, your family.
Well, I just quit, and guess what? My friends did.
They went on.
All called me.
Oh yeah.
So your friends are going to be there. Yeah. If they're your friends, right? So what are you truly?
When I say they all went on, it's like they went to work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They went to work.
Yeah.
And even though one of them texted me at 5 a.m., I was awake, and they still called me. Hey, cool, congrats, good job.
Yeah.
I hate that you left. I hate you for leaving, but they're still going to be there. So
they're hugely supportive.
What are you really quitting? Like, what is really scary about quitting a fire job to work on something that maybe your wife is beating you up over, and you need to quit and work on
whether
this?
it be fire, police, EMS, it doesn't matter where.
No.
Even if it's the highest paying tech job, if it owns you and you don't own it.
And I was nervous to tell my brother about me quitting. Yeah. I was like, Luke. And it honestly took me a second, because we had decided that we were going to quit, and I was going to tell him, and I was like, no, I'll tell him tomorrow. And I did that a couple times, but I was so nervous to tell him, because he's in that law enforcement brotherhood. He gets it. He gets the brotherhood. He understands it. He's in the military. He gets it. And I honestly was expecting a completely different outcome. And his outcome was, or his response to me was, hell yeah. Good for you.
Wow. Backwards.
Yeah. And I was like, sorry, what? What? He's like, do you know what? Honestly, I wish I could have done it 10 years ago. And that's kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, okay.
Do you know, I think most people are that way. Do you know what? We are afraid of what people feel. But ultimately, all they want is what's best for you. Even though they'll only think about it when you're on the phone with them, by the way. They still have their own deals they're dealing with.
Right.
And we put too much weight in what other people think of us. And the only time they think of us is we're in their face or on the phone, generally speaking, if it's not our immediate wife or kids.
Yeah.
We are egotistical enough to make ourselves believe that they're worried about what's happening.
Yeah.
They don't give two shits about what's happening to us.
No.
They do when they're talking to you. And sometimes there's a little bit of jealousy. Sometimes there's a little bit of whatever that's in the middle, like even wanting to not lose you as a partner.
Yeah.
Right. It's usually self-centered.
Like Luke said. He came out and said, I'm a little jealous. Good for you. Yeah. But when it comes to, I think why we've had it for 6 years, why didn't we do it sooner? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is what everybody else is. Can we afford it? They start questioning it. But then what's that little voice back is fear. Everybody's afraid to take that step. Could it be better? Could it better your life? Yeah.
So speaking of fear, I'm going to cut you right here just real quick. You've been deployed Iraq. Where else?
Luke went to Afghanistan. I went to Iraq.
Okay.
We've kind of gone all over.
You did the DC deal.
Yep. Went to Washington, DC.
During COVID.
during
Right? Or was
COVID.
it when was it?
It was during the riots.
During the riot. So
At
January
the-
6th.
Yep. So up at the I was at the White House. I have a picture of me sleeping on the White House lawn
Nice.
when we were kicked out of the hotel.
Nice.
It was awesome. They couldn't even get food into us at one point. So it was awesome.
And you got COVID
Yeah. And I
at the
got
White
COVID.
House.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So kind of been all over, did a lot of stuff. And
fear. Those are scary deals. Iraq, scary? No?
yeah. Scary. I was in charge of detainee operations where they weren't just nice people that would walk
Wanted to
through
give you a
there.
hug, right?
Yeah. And a lot of the times you had to fight. And I don't wear a wedding ring because one of the guys looked at me and said, "How hard would it be for me to find your family?" And
You're right.
just so happened that day that I forgot to take my name tape off. I said, "Not very hard," because I was an idiot. And that right there, like that's fear. That's a different, like,
Yeah,
you can
now it's
threaten
family.
you can threaten me all you want. I don't care.
It's a little different than fear of quitting a job.
But you say family, then you're in trouble. But that versus me quitting my job, why is that so scary?
Stability.
Right.
It's the
That's
same one for
exactly where I
everybody.
was getting to, is they're afraid that they're going to lose that stability. And that's what holds a lot of people back.
So
Look where
stems from faith of themselves, right? And we've had a lot of, I think we've been worn down on our own beliefs sometimes. And I don't mean this in religious beliefs. I mean that we can do something that we want to do. Fortunately for me, my mom, you can do whatever you want. And I have a fun little story about that with my neighbor, Andy Williams. My mom was like, "Listen, you can do whatever you want." She was a hairdresser cutting hair in our basement. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I mean, she was trying to say you can be a doctor, you can be a pilot, you can be whatever you want to be, the president if you want. I'm like, awesome. So she goes, I guess my immediate answer, I don't remember this. She goes, "Jeremy, you immediately respond with it. So that means I can beat up Andy Williams?" So I guess I went down the street, fought Andy
Perfect.
Williams, and came back and said, "You were right." Well, then my dad and him ended up in a battle. But, if you don't get that pushed in your head that you really, truly can do it. And I can tell you, if I can pull something off, 99% of the people can. And mine is usually compensated with the input of time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to do it fast always. And I have ADD and it seems fast a lot. But it's after I've exercised and tried to go to work, get early, stay ridiculous amounts of hours. And the people see me here at 8 hours, but I go home, I'll go to a different site and I work. And then my wife's like, "Are you coming home? It's 11:30 and you leave at 3:30 or 4. And then you do that." And I'm not saying I'm Mr. Machine at all, but it comes down to, I don't know how to do something and I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to figure it out and I'm going to make some mistakes and I try to do it all by myself. Like, hey, I'm going to try to figure this out. And then once I do, I bring it to the front presence and it seems like it's immediate.
Yeah.
But it's not because I'm really smart or good. It's because I just have to overcompensate with time. And then I have great people around me, right? I've been fortunate now that I have super awesome people.
Yeah. And that's kind of how the employees I have now are just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They're just overall just good people, and surrounding yourself with those kind of people that want to see your business succeed as much as you want to see it succeed.
Well, they have a little equity ownership in their heart, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean stock always. Equity means that you give them trust and empowerment.
Yeah.
To feel like they have a little stock in the success of the business because they've put their name on it and they're doing the work in your absence when you've been going back and forth.
I was just going to say, and for them to stay working that hard when we're not there, because it can float itself, right? Why do they need to do it if I'm not doing it?
Because they have pride.
Right.
Right.
Because of the kind of people they are. Now, granted, they've been keeping us going along this far, and now
you're going to help.
Oh yeah, and we're going to show in that, hey, we're in this together.
It won't change their hours.
No.
Also, it's going to be his growth, and it's going to be it's going to be add-on,
Yeah.
it's going to be stacking. And I think a lot of companies forget that. We're not giving enough faith, trust, freedoms, liberties. And I don't mean freedoms bring ping pong, show up to work when you want. There's some of those that have a value to it. I don't disagree.
Do you think there should be a ping pong table here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's one in the barn. I'll have to wheel it out. So there is really brand new in a box. So it's sitting out there because I just don't know where to put it. But nonetheless, I think there should be some values of freedom. But when you come back, to not armchair quarterback your people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, trust but verify. You have to let them run, let them do their thing, and really celebrate their mistakes. And it's easy to say that that's what you do. It's really hard to do. And I try really my very best to not let people go over a mistake. So you're right here, full-time Crown.
Yeah.
Full-time innovation ideas, always driving to the next great thing. And I honestly look at Crown for me, or I shouldn't say for me, when I look at Crown in my eyes for you, knowing where your mind goes, is like it is a stepping stone in several other building blocks in businesses. And whether you're going to do Crown promotions or whether you're going to do real estate or whether you're going to do a coffee shop or whatever, right? The disciplines and the lessons learned in every business, it doesn't matter what you're selling, the experiences you have, even though, you do sheds, and I never thought I'd build cabinets. I have no idea how to do cabinets, right? The disciplines are all the same. That's why a banker can look at a financial statement and understand it.
Yeah.
Right. Even though they may not understand how to build a ventilator or understand how to build a kitchen cabinet or understand how to do countertops or t-shirts.
Yeah.
The financial statement, they understand as long as they're put together by somebody that understands how to put them together.
Yes.
Right. That's another thing you can't let yourself down.
Don't come to me for financial statements.
Don't go cheap on who's putting together your numbers, your reports.
Nope.
Be disciplined, right? Especially now, if you're doing your own stuff, absolutely get an armchair quarterback to help you get them categorized correctly, get them in your systems right.
Oh yeah.
So you have true visibility of your objective and what you're really accomplishing. Financials are what? It's rear view mirror world. As long as you can have a clear perspective of your past.
Correct.
That you can apply the past history to future lessons. If you're giving jumbled past and you can't look at those financials with true clarity and understanding of the statement of whatever happened.
Yes.
Like look at it as an accident statement. The freshest minute is right after it happened, even though we're kind of combobulated trying to figure it out. But when we do our report medically, we'll run a patient. The best time to do it is leaving the hospital. You can recap the incident.
Right then.
But if you do what I did a lot when you get buried is you do 6 reports in a row and you're like, which dude was this? I can't remember. Was it a girl or was it a boy? Which one had the overdose? Which one just shot himself? I don't remember. Right. So a good, clear data gathering system and a good, clear history, financial statements, and even experiences that you have through the day, like transcripts on what you do, just quick notes, little book, like, hey, did this, and review.
I have to carry my book. If I don't, I can't remember anything.
Right. So I really think once you really figure out that data system, and I still don't know how to do it. I don't know how they categorize everything. I can read our 40-page financial statement, but this magician over here, not always easy to get along with, but dang it. It is accounted. It is recorded. We have $50 PO minimums, which I think is asinine when they said to do it. Now I'm like, it's great because I have clarity on anything over $50. It went to the shop. It went to advertising. And it gives me a really good transparency, not because I'm trying to be a $50 control freak, but anything worth more than $50 should be accounted for and categorized in the right category so we can keep track on what the actual spend is.
Yeah, that's huge in any business you're doing. Like that is,
it's important.
I think that's
triangulation accounting is what it's called.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know, like, I got to make sure I know what I'm spending at the store on. Like we use acetone. I didn't know that you had to even keep that receipt. So I didn't. And then when it came time and we tried to get records going, they're like, well, where's all your receipts?
I threw them in the garbage.
For
yeah,
what?
my credit card statement.
Yeah.
Which I argue is still okay. But the accounting departments don't do that either. They like it.
They like
well, it gets true transparency and honesty and integrity to your numbers, right?
Yeah.
I'm the worst at keeping receipts. And it drives my girls crazy, and for every reason.
Oh, yeah.
For every reason.
Yeah, it drives me crazy to think that you don't do that.
Yeah, I just don't.
Because now I'm afraid to not turn in receipts.
Well, I am too. Well, I'm just saying I just don't by habit.
Yeah.
When I say that.
Yeah, no.
I don't by habit. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't. And I'm getting much better, especially if the bills, like if I use a credit card for over 15 grand, I make sure I turn in that receipt now.
Yeah.
If it's like 20 grand for sure, I'm going to just turn in that receipt. I'm going to get in trouble for sure.
Right.
No, but I've gotten a ton better. And
if it's 9 grand, you turn it in, don't waste your time with that.
Well, let's be honest. What do you spend your money on right now? It's gas. When it comes to business outside of the offices, especially when you get to a bigger footprint, you're really only spending gas money
Yeah.
right? Or you're going to go get a DeWalt saw or a drill or some hoses.
Yep.
It's really, and Home Depot categorizes all the receipts, and you don't have to keep it. They get an email, it comes on your statement, and you get copies of everything you bought with your commercial account, which makes me really lazy.
We should have a good return this year because we have to buy a lot of new office stuff.
Yeah, hey, we're getting there. Finally. Did you see garage doors are in with a broken window, by the way?
Looks good.
Jeez.
Looks dang good.
And then doors are going in. They poured the apron to the storefront. Glass door should go in tomorrow, not to get in the side. But we have a lot of fun things going together, right?
We do,
and I think where your mind takes you, and not to get too crazy, but with Crown and your future forecast of where you want to see, we're going to call it Call Enterprise, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different steps you can take.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity. One, you can still work part-time fire. And I heard you got a part-time fire gig.
I did.
Right.
Yep.
So that'll keep you at least entertained, and you can feel your passion a little bit, and you can spend the next several years weaning off of it or weaning back into it.
Well,
right?
that's what you did, right?
And I'm still doing it, but I haven't worked since January.
January?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's really hard. Well, we had trade show seasons, right?
Yeah,
and I went on the road for a month and did my thing. So now it's time to go back.
Which congratulations on Best in Show.
Yeah. Best, not just that, best number one indoor product.
That's right.
2022 National Association of Home
you guys
Builders.
crushed it.
Yeah. So the Murphy door, by the way, not that it really has anything to do with this podcast, but we got from Firefighter Base 2012 founding to now. If you're wondering if you can pull something off in your little business, in your little fire station, we're talking about competitors like Halo, Geldwin, giant corporations, Fortune 500 companies, and everybody that has anything to do with interior products. Refrigerators, tables, chairs, pictures, automation, you name it.
The fridges with the
screens or whatever in front of them. Right? You're competing against everybody.
Huge.
Here's little guy Murphy Door, not me, but the little guy being Murphy Door, and our amazing team of kind of just scrappy little players that have created in the last 10 years from working. And when I say 10 years ago, we incorporated in December of 2012. Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have revenue in 2012.
Right.
But 2013 first year revenue, 30 grand. 30 grand. I actually wrote that number down. It was pretty amazing. And 2013, 30,000, then 105. So if you don't think you can pull something off that is such a game changer that when you go head to head against every major indoor product, that you can't walk away with the trophy as the number one indoor product at the International Builders Show, voted by the National Association of Home Builders in Orlando, Florida. This isn't Salt Lake City's Wasatch Front Home Builders, right? This is International Builders Show.
Huge.
The biggest show for builders in the United States with all the different products. And we, by the way, we were 5 of the 8 nominees for Best Kitchen and Bath. We were 3 of the 6 Best Indoor Product, and we were 1 of the 5 Best Overall Product. So we were entered into Best Overall, which got won by Evolve Stone, police-based people, like police family members, awesome, out of New York. Great product. So if I'm going to lose, best guys to lose for. Humble, great, super proud of those guys.
Cool.
Best Indoor Product, Murphy Door, with 3 other nominees of our products inside it. Best Kitchen and Bath Product, 5 of 8. So I thought for sure that would take it. We lost. I don't remember who won. I was pretty put off. No, just teasing. And then there was a couple others. So if you look at these list of players, they're reading it off by, Samsung and this and whatever. Like, there is not a chance in hell this little dude that has no money is going to come back and say, number one indoor product. We don't have the backing of a multi-billion-dollar firm, and not just a multi-billion-dollar firm. We're talking about a publicly traded firm that has just this different kind of cash flow, right?
Yeah.
You can get creative in your garage. You can get creative on your round table at the fire station.
Yeah.
You can get creative in the passenger seat, and I'm saying that because I don't want you driving being creative, of the ambulance or wherever your world exists.
100%.
Do not let other people limit your vision.
Yeah, that right there.
Do not let them. If you know it can be successful and you can ping pong it across to other people, do some diligence and ping pong it. And just see if what your vision is correct and generally accepted.
Yep.
Maybe you have to refine that a little bit. But if you believe in it, there's a reason to believe in it. I would highly recommend not getting too pigeonholed into a niche product that's only going to be for brown-haired fire dudes that work at Ogden City, right? Like, don't pigeonhole yourself, because that's hard to make a revenue that's consistent.
Yep. There are people out there, though, whether they're your friends or your family or best friends, whoever it is around you, can still, it's that crab effect. When one crab starts to get out of the pot,
They all start to fall.
well, they're either going to drag you down or they're going to push you back up. Not on purpose, but they're going to push you up. But find those people around you that are
Kind of cheerlead.
they're only going to be on your side. That's it.
And I would say with that, only going to be on your side, good or bad, which means that you trust so much that if you are going down the wrong path, your mom's going to always say don't.
Yeah.
Right? She's always going to say
Mom's
don't.
your cheerleader.
So find some, they're your cheerleader and they're also your protector. So like, whoa, you're going to fall out of the nest, right?
Yeah.
So my mom's always worried. And I'll give you a quick story about the National Builder Show or the International Builder Show. We spent a grundle of cash, near 7 figures on that booth, right? Which was a really cool progression. But my mom's sick. Like, she did trade shows her whole life, selling butane stoves and blankets. Everybody's met my mom in Utah. Yep. Actually, Rich King's wife knows my mom really, really well. And it's funny. She goes, I never put those two together. But she's worked really hard to have $1,000 booth or a $600 table at a trade show. And she would be sick about it. It's $600. And I have to do this. And I have to sell so many stoves or blankets to do it.
So how was her reaction when you said,
well, that you're dropping that? She was just sick. She's like, Jeremy, listen, she calls me day 1 of the show. So we were there setting up, got there on Sunday and show lunch Tuesday morning. It was about noon, 11 o'clock or Florida time. So 9 here. She's up. I mean, she's probably just getting up at about 8 anyway. My phone rings and I'm like, if I don't answer this phone, my mother will stab me from Salt Lake City. Yeah. Right over the phone. I'll feel it. Right. I'll get these laser beam eyes because she's so sick and worried sick about this booth being assembled for one. And if it's going to even work, how are people going to like it? So I'm like, hey mom, what's going on? So I put it on FaceTime for her. I go, do you want to see the booth? So she walks around. She's like, holy crap, that is beautiful. And I walk around in a circle. And what was weird about the booth is our front of our booth, if you have a chance to look it up on social media, is wide open.
Oh, so cool.
It's such a cool booth, right? But the back has like 4 entry doors. And it was really supposed to be the exit.
Right.
Just man doors that were like 5 foot wide.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so this is the big entry. The big open front was facing the main hallway. Well, the people behind us didn't show up. So it was like a 40 by 50 area that the booth directly behind us left it open. So you could see the whole Murphy door, like almost peninsula style.
Perfect. We
super lucked out. Well, everybody would go and they were waiting in line at the back exit, right? So I made sure, by the way, when I put her on FaceTime, because we're talking on the phone, I'm like, hey, do you want to do it? Was when we saw this really good line. And throughout the day, you'd have a big, long line and then no line, a big, long line. So I'm like, she goes, is it working? Put it on FaceTime. I'm like, I don't know. What do you think about the front? And then she goes, oh my gosh, are those people in line waiting to get into the Murphy door booth? I'm like, yeah, they're standing in line. She goes, why don't they go to the front? I'm like, I don't know. But it's cool because people are at least willing to wait to come walk through it.
Yeah.
So you can have your worst critic, or not worst critic, that's the wrong way to put it. You can have your biggest cheerleader who is also your biggest protector, holding you back saying, don't ever spend that kind of money.
Yeah, that person for me is my wife. Like you said, I have this idea and I can also go off on some side roads that are ideas that are businesses or something I want to do. And I'm like, hey, check this out. And she goes, what?
Yeah, she does. That's exactly her face too.
What is that? I'm like, and I tell her the idea and she's like, nope. Back to the drawing board. And I'll show her some more. But there is times she's like, that's a really good idea. And those are the ideas that I go after.
Right. You should. Well, if you can get encouragement, and that's probably the most important one to go to, by the way, is always your wife. And I have I'm lucky that way because my wife's pretty passive and she trusts me and she's okay if we live in a car or if she's okay if we live in our house in Morgan. Not that that's really she's okay with, but she trusts me enough. And I know that she's not so possession oriented that it would matter. Right. No. She's okay with it. And honestly, I'm okay with it too. And I think that's kind of the other piece that separates some of us from others that are willing to take the risk. And I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone. I'm just dumber. Right. Like truly the bottom line is when people are like, you put all that out there, you're freaking all out.
Yeah.
Everything in your world is at risk. You just go. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, aren't you worried about losing everything? I'm like, I actually didn't even think about it. Well, you could lose everything. I'm like, yeah. I could lose everything anyway.
Yeah.
Right. but I have this idea that I kind of want to march through, and some win, some don't. And it's
Right.
okay. Some of them you shelf after 10 years later, you look back and you go, hey, we should shelf, right?
Yeah, I don't know why that.
We'll get them
there.
We'll get them there.
It'll
But
be there.
at the same time, there's timing for everything.
Right.
And I think having a level of ability to accept that risk versus reward and be okay with loss and not beat
Yes.
yourself up for it. Like if I went bankrupt tomorrow, everything hit the fan, oil prices shut wood down. We can't get wood. We can't do anything. We have to close.
Yeah.
And that means I've tried every single thing I could do. If we have to make cabinets, if we have to make bunk beds, if we have to make wooden wheels, I would try all those things. Right.
Yeah.
And then finally at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nonetheless, what the whole concept of this is you went from a military background to a fire background to, back to now to a little bit of entrepreneurship, and then now into full on entrepreneurship with a fire in the background.
Yep.
Right. So it's just going to be a part-time deal to fulfill your passion and your morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
Is what we call that. Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's kind of what we need to keep looking at. It's a different view, and it's not necessarily where you felt your passion was several years ago, but it's absolutely doable. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be worried to do something. You can be worried, but you shouldn't be afraid.
No.
You guys do way more stuff being a cop or a firefighter than the fear of going into business. This one you're not going to die on, most likely.
Right.
This one you might go financially broke, which is a great learning lesson too. Truly.
Yeah. Everybody's that's been successful has been bankrupt.
Yeah, I did it 2 times.
2 times.
I thought
right?
I'd do it. If really good people did it once, I did it twice.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm just that good. Just kidding.
That's even more of an investment.
Wow, right? I mean,
See?
shoot, if that was so great for Walt Disney,
Overachiever.
I might as well do it again. And here's the thing is that it is hard. People, I've heard a guy from Centerville just recently, an old friend is like, oh, dude, Barker, yeah, he's doing this. Oh, yeah. Well, he's been bankrupt. And he's like, so anyway, my family member.
Yeah,
was like,
that's.
He was jabbing your eye, and I said, yeah. And he goes, so what did you say? He goes, yeah, he's been bankrupt. Don't look too excited about it. He goes, yeah, I know. I heard it on his podcast. He's been bankrupt twice. He goes, he went bankrupt again, right? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Am I wish I wouldn't have? Well, of course I wish I wouldn't have.
Right.
I can pinpoint where my decisions were that I made that caused me to get there.
Yeah.
I know the people I trusted and the mistakes I made. And I'm not going to say it's because of you that I went bankrupt and it's all your fault. Well, that's that a lot of it may be slightly true when you liquidate everybody's receivables out of their account and from their biggest vendor. Yeah, that helps. But ultimately, it was the trust in that person that was the fault, which was mine. Yeah. So if you want to get to the single source of failure, you can't point at anybody else other than yourself and in your decision-making process of getting there. It isn't okay, right? You want to avoid ownership and equity in the stake of failure, and you can't.
So this is what terrifies me now after that conversation.
Why?
I've never been bankrupt.
Oh, shit. You're going to get this one. And it'll be fine. You guys will just live in the car for a year. You got a small family. It'll be okay.
It's okay, though?
Yeah. Heck, you keep the freaking...
You have 2 houses.
3, but I mean, we're not counting. So
I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying to choose which one I'm going to
stay in one of mine. Anyway, I'm Airbnb in that. I don't want to say that in any deal. That is a real estate investment portfolio. It has nothing to do with I live in 2 houses. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but
it's just a different channel of income.
And that's one more thing that we that's in the back of my head is that I
never operate in fear. Never.
I'm not trying to operate in that fear, but it's not that fear, it's that knowing that it could happen.
Well, guess what that does? What does that do in the fire world?
But it drives me.
You know, when you go into a structure fire, especially commercial related or multifamily or big apartments, Ben Lomond, like these old critical buildings that never know, right? Yeah. Well, do you not go in?
No, you still go in.
You take what? Calculated risk.
By running in there.
No, you calculate your risk in your decision making. You're right.
That's what you're supposed to do is calculate.
But we calculate our forecasted risk, and there's no difference in business. The difference is it's not near as dang scary as going into Ben Lomond or when Smith and Edwards warehouse on 25th Street went up.
Well, yeah.
And that was crazy. Yeah. Not really went up. It was a homeless dumpster, but it looked like a big fire on the inside. It was just some dude with a barrel. But nonetheless, people are falling through worn out floors. That's a way bigger risk than being afraid of if your Crown T-shirts is gonna
Right.
go down.
No, that's the best part is I get to control it now. I get to be in control of
Right.
of the future of Crown Promotions. So
And you're going to have those huge wakes, and you're going to feel
Oh,
like you're
yeah.
about to get kicked out of your canoe, and you're going to have long storms that are going to carry you through it, and you're going to wonder if you can keep paddling.
but you're just gonna keep. Just gonna keep
You know what?
paddling.
I had this exact conversation with Annie last night driving home from family dinner. My mother-in-law, my wife's grandma, she's 89, right? Yeah, 89, and she's like, Dad. She was watching the Hayden Wadsworth podcast. And I don't watch my own stuff, but she wanted a hydro jug. And I said, hey, I talked to him. She looked it up. She goes, Dad, do you ever get mad at yourself for just quitting? How am I? Well, of course. She goes, you know, how big, she asked about the steel frame door on the front of the sheds that I divide, you know, the one that we patented first back in the day, the structure. She goes, you know, everybody has those, right, Dad? Everywhere I go that has sheds, they all have your door. I'm like, yeah, everybody does. Big drop. I messed it up. It's okay. I was young. I was arrogant. I didn't dare tell people that I didn't know how to do something.
Right.
So instead I stayed, and I actually would go park at friends' houses or at my friends' barns in West Bountiful and just not be exposed because I didn't have good answers for the bank or the lumberyard or my employees. Like, rather than be out there actively searching for solution, I'm 22 years old, too arrogant and pompous to really come to a good answer.
Yeah.
I guess I was 25 at that point, but this is 25 years old. I didn't dare have exposure of weakness, right? When truly the time that I'd sit at a barn and weep in my own freaking weakness, I could have been looking at people that I really, truly respected and appreciated and been open booked and said, dude, this is all the stuff that's happening. Here's what our pipeline looks at, which was amazing.
Yeah.
But here's what my outgo looks like. And I don't know how to put these pieces back together again. You know, and like I said earlier, in hindsight, looking at those problems now is very easy to fix all those problems. So Annie goes, don't you wish you would have quit? I'm like, well, now that I'm 48 years old in August and I've seen these problems and how they can be worked out, it wasn't even a problem.
No.
But for people that have lived it and experienced it, what seems really hard to you, there is somebody out there with your answer.
Yeah.
There is someone.
And that you just got to ask. We were there. We were there. I remember walking into the office and Jody just crying. Like, okay, what's going on? We can't do this, can we? No. And then, yeah, you can. We can. We'll figure out a way. But that's what it was, is we will figure out a way. How are we going to figure out a way if we don't even know what the steps are to solve a problem? Instead of us, we suffered for so long trying to just, that barely getting by type thing. Are my employees going to get a paycheck? Instead, I could have went to somebody. I could have went to you. I could have went to somebody that's made those mistakes. I could have went to somebody that knows how to fix that and said, "Can
you point me in a direction?
Help me."
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form, just help me.
But nonetheless, it takes you lifting your skirt. You have to expose all the weakness that you have.
Yeah, and
You're
now
like, look.
And now I almost feel like sometimes I get annoying when I'm like, Jeremy, listen to this.
But it never bothers me.
Right. Never.
But
why didn't that occur to me a long time ago when
I think sometimes we talk a lot. Like you and I talk a lot, and you're afraid that I'm going to say something to someone that's going to expose your weakness, or you're going to say something that's going to expose your weakness. But I think when someone comes up in a help profile, as long as they're professional and respectful, and you said, hey, Jeremy, look, I have this problem. There's no way, no matter how much I blab, that I would ever expose your weakness. Like, because there's just a level that you can't do. And I know that I always said, hey, Colt, this has to stay here between you and I. And if you want to tell people, tell the right people. But please, this is kind of a thing for me. If you do with what you wish, I'd be almost 100% confident you wouldn't say anything. Like, there's a thing that has to stay here. There's stuff working banner. Hey, did you know Colt has hairy toes or whatever? Like that, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, there's some things that most professionals would never, ever do anything to hurt your business reputation because you asked for help.
Right. And now I'm not afraid anymore, because every time I have came to you, I've left with the knowledge of what I needed to do or what I need to do from there on out. But then I've also got something extra. We sat in the conference room for an hour and a half longer than what needed to happen because I was learning something new.
Yeah, and I learned too.
Yeah, it wasn't even what I was asking about, because that was solved. But then there was like, once this is done, there's this, and this that should happen, but this can also happen. You're like, shit, you walk out of there and I have half my folder that I was writing and just taking notes.
You know what's nice when you're giving advice too in these platforms is you see the problems people experience, and hopefully you can figure out how they wandered into it, which then you can take that lesson and go, hey, I have a buddy that did this, and this is probably not a great idea. So you're getting just as much knowledge by helping other people, and you're paying it forward slightly.
Yeah.
And then when it's time for me to need help, I'm that guy. You know me. I'm not afraid. Hey, Colt, remember?
Yeah.
Dude, I need you.
Yeah.
I need you, please. Right. And I'm not afraid to call it back.
Right.
But it takes everyone. It takes your family, your friends, your employees, people you trust, people you don't like, to help really take you there.
Oh, yeah.
You have to just kind of eat crow. And I think that's the scariest part, especially now that you're all in.
Mm-hmm.
You're all in. And now you're going to have to look at, hey, we're making it whatever the number is. And you're going to say, how do I double that? And then how do I double that?
Yep.
And then how do I keep going at a growth rate? Because if you're, I know that's super cliche, but if you're not growing, you're failing.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't have to be massive growth, but some level of restricted growth can hurt your business if you're not keeping up with inflation.
Yeah.
At any level.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to grow at a minimum percentage to keep up with anything.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of our goals, is just even like from here on out.
With Bidenflation, you're going to really have to grow your company big right now.
Golly.
Right.
Yeah. Huge.
It's the biggest mess I've ever seen, but nonetheless, it's hard.
It affects freaking your transportation is what's killing us.
Right.
But it is hard.
Just charge for it. So advice here,
to.
You have to just increase it. Never take a loss. People, talking to some friends right now. Listen, what have you done with pricing on freight? Nothing. The second I hear the national freight index, like national fuel index on Monday, if it has changed at any level or percentage, our freight moves that day.
It does.
That day.
Okay.
Like if I can't, it's immediate phone call to Scott. Scott, you need to change the freight this much. You have to do it. If you do not protect your margin, and I'm not saying that as a greedy business CEO, all I'm trying to do with freight is cover break even.
Yeah.
And then we do have a percentage of the freight. By the way, when you see a Murphy door freight and you're checking out, it says $400.
Mm-hmm.
There is a percentage of freight in the door built in. So that freight really is $600. You're only getting asked, or $300. You're only getting asked to pay a percentage of that based on the value of the door. The door absorbs some of the cost and the freight absorbs some of the cost. So we may look at it and say, that's $295 shipping. That's insane. Just so you know, that freight's $600, right? But you're only seeing $295. So we may look greedy. All I'm trying to say is if that freight's $600, we can't go into the margin, or my employees don't have health care. They don't have vacation. They don't have sick leave. They don't have health or dental and vision.
Yeah, you can't take that away.
You can't risk that. So we do not play the risk game or say, look, we're going to absorb some of the freight. Absorbing some of the freight just means you're going to take a loss.
Yeah.
And your employees are going to suffer in their bonus checks. If you participate in any kind of profit sharing, they're going to hurt.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, I think we as business owners underestimate what the customers understand.
Mm-hmm.
They get it.
Oh, yeah.
They're paying freight. Yeah, they're 100%. Frustrated with it, and they're going to yell at you for it.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not the only one.
No,
they're mad at the milk guy, the bread guy, the egg guy, the wheat guy, right? So don't think this is all you, that you have to bear the burden. Yeah, the customers will totally appreciate it if you don't raise your freight.
Thanks a lot, Biden.
Yeah, right. They think a lot of, they will appreciate your ability to absorb the loss.
Yeah.
But do they also appreciate the fact they have to pay it? Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they're going to be thrilled that they don't have to pay more and you're willing to absorb it. They're going to be pissed off when you're out of business and the door needs a warranty.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You're going to have to stay with the times, and it's okay. Customers understand it. Move your pricing accordingly. Stay in tune, stay on time with it. Do it in a timely manner. Don't get greedy. If it's only gone up $1, go $1. But don't go 10.
No.
Right? Because then you lose that trust in your customer. So we keep it in line with the value of the freight. It's not a margin center for us. At the end of the day, our freight breaks even every month. If we lose a little bit, We raise it a little bit. This is just how it moves.
You just keep it in line with
now.
the
It just has to be weekly,
okay,
instead of monthly, right?
Yeah.
We'll make the adjustment. So by end of year, it's a break even line.
Okay.
Even though it looks super high
Just
every month,
break even.
it's several $100,000 a month we spend in freight,
Jeez.
and I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it's the most uncontrollable, most frustrating for customers. Your door didn't show up. Your guy stood me up. I'm like, dude, I have nothing to do with controlling UPS. It's just like when I order an Amazon Prime box.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't show up on the day they said. Am I going to go yell at Amazon? They're going to say, well, it's with UPS.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to pay me back. No. Do you want me to cancel it? Sure. But at the end of the day, I wish I had so much horsepower that I could call UPS. Hey,
Yeah.
Carol Tomei, you're really going to have to do this. Or call Estes or freaking FedEx or Old Dominion. They deal with freight all day. They're dealing with freaking fuel prices, bad employees, not all bad, but people that don't want to work. I should say bad employment. What am I trying to say? Options. They don't have a whole lot of employee, right? They don't have that. And on top of that, some of them don't want to be working either. So you've got dedicated truck drivers that isn't necessarily difficult physically.
Yeah.
But it is an extremely difficult job, away from your family, driving all night, dealing with snow, dealing with traffic, having a rollover, having this.
A lot of people don't want to work anymore. There's help wanted signs everywhere.
And everybody wants to yell at the truck driver for being late. Like, how many times have you been home late for dinner because there's traffic?
Right.
It's not their fault that they missed your window by an hour.
They're walking.
Or even a day.
They're working.
They're trying.
Yeah.
Well, Cole, anything you else want to visit with? What do you have?
Was it hard for you to truly, I don't think you've truly walked away from fire. You still do part-time, right? When you were like, I'm done being a full-time firefighter.
Every day still.
Still.
Every day still. Like, you can ask, I go to lunch with Chief Clark a lot, and I'm like, dude, I would take that full-time position right now if I was willing to give up my liberties of saying, I'm going to go to Florida for a few weeks or go to Mexico for a couple of weeks, or I won't be back to the office for a month, right? If I didn't have such a free schedule that I could, and then when I go, I still work in Florida, by the way, or I can work in whatever place I'm in. But dude, if I could take that,
right. So
I'd be there tomorrow.
So here's my question. This kind of goes back. So when you were a full-time firefighter, what made you want to start looking into something else? Like, you were a full-time fire and you had this idea, Murphy Door. Okay. We'll just take Murphy Door. You're a full-time firefighter. Murphy Door. I'm gonna do Murphy Door. What makes you want to do Murphy Door? What made you want to do Murphy Door so much that you knew you could have got out of the fire service?
So it didn't start like that.
Okay.
I wanted to do a door in my theater room in the basement, and there wasn't really a solution to be able to build that type of door. So we had to come up with a concept on how it would operate. Mm-hmm. Now, keep in mind, I'm just framed. There's a long ways in fire wages from being able to finish your basement. I just have 2x4s up, no power, no plumbing. But I'm like, if I want to build this theater room, I want this really cool ticket booth door that we've never built a door like that here at Murphy Door, and we probably should, but it would probably be $10,000 with the difficulty level. And I may be wrong, but now I just think what could operate. So we saw different ones, and I saw the ones that have the hinges on the side, and you see a lot of at-home people that do the 3-hinge system or a piano hinge system. And I'm not an engineer, but really I have framed a lot. Like, I framed houses for a while, and I understand kind of how fasteners work.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a top shelf, you have a fixed shelf, and you have a bottom shelf.
Right.
Ultimately, if you mount a side hinge to our bookcase, you're only as strong as what fasteners?
Just the thick ones, right?
Just the 2 screws on the top, in the middle, and the bottom. Well, the issue that you have in a bookcase door, and I'm going to kind of show the customers, is when you put your hinge pin on this side and you only have 2 screws here and 2 screws here and 2 screws here going in this way into your shelf, and you mount your 3 standard regular door hinges here, right? When you have 300 pounds of weight, because I was building our doors 14.5 inches thick with full of glass to make it look like a Ticketmaster.
It's going to turn
it's going to pull those 2 little screws it's loaded kind of down, right? So it's got a vertical load this way. So it's wanting to peel. Well, you may have you can do a 3-hinge system, or you can do a full piano hinge system that may have 100 screws in it. Like, oh, dude, I went with the best, most heavy duty piano hinge on the planet.
Right.
It's the greatest hinge ever. It'll carry 10,000 pounds. Oh, that's awesome. But those are only as good as the 2 screws up here, 2 screws over here, and 2 screws down here. You can have the biggest hinge on the planet and still only good as those 2 screws that's going into your plywood, which can only hold as much as it holds on a pool.
Right.
Right. And after time of opening and closing a door and pulling on it this way, this is why cabinet makers have such a hard time. And I watched a few little YouTube videos back then. They're like, oh, they're really hard. You're always having to adjust it. Well, it's got breakaway and it's got give and it's got flex.
Yeah.
So they just do the face frame on the front. They do the back, staple it on, right? And it's usually 1/4-inch Luan, which is just absolute garbage, by the way. 1/4-inch panel. Plywood is a misnomer. Like, yeah, grandma cut both ends of the ham. Plywood's good. It's light, but it has a whole lot of defect options in it, right? So I'm looking, what's great? MDF's dense. It's engineered. Like, there's a whole lot of reasons, even though people think particle board's cheap.
Yeah.
Composites are composites, man. You can go after man-made 7,000 PSI freaking bend points, right? Or you can go with plywood. And yeah, you can snap a piece of MDF if you want to buy a cheap one, or you can be 7,000 pounds and not. Cute videos out there that kind of share it and want to argue on their hinges, right? Or their backs. But ultimately, it's all noise. And same with this 3-hinge pin. They're like, oh, you can just use standard hinges. You can use a piano hinge. But if you're a customer and you think about the math of a door, and I'm not trying to sell Murphy door here, but again, what we've done is this just pulls apart.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do a pivot hinge, top and bottom.
Okay.
Where the weight sits. We did an 1.5 inch thick base. And this is all stuff I was doing on fire to get to your answer.
Right.
I'm like, look, in order to do this, we're going to have to carry some weight, and the weight should be carried from the bottom and stabilized from the top. Right. And then the door can do its own thing. You can load it because now you have 1.5 inch carry weight with direct carry from the bottom and from the top.
So you're building this in your basement because you wanted
I'm building this at Roy Fire.
At Roy Fire.
On paper.
Because you wanted
at my house.
A ticket booth door in your house.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the whole basis of it.
So you got the pivot point at the top and bottom.
We decided the hinge is going to be easy. And the concept, there was a Rixson hinge out there, but it was a few $100, super out of reach for me at the time.
Yeah. And
it had to be mortised in, right? So meaning they had to cut the hole out in the board and it had to be recessed into the door, which made a nice thick top. But I don't have that equipment. I don't even know how to route a board, right? Very well. I do, but don't, right? To be able to be artistic.
Well, again, you could have paid somebody, but then again, you're in
I couldn't pay anybody. Dude, I worked at Roy.
Yeah.
$15.52 an hour.
I'm saying there's people that out there that could have done it.
Sure.
But it's again, you're
but outside of my reach.
$300 to just do that.
So the hinge is just a pivot hinge. And I did excavation for a while. And they have a movable bucket on a backhoe.
Yeah.
Where you can do a quick disconnect and you can change angles of attack.
Yep.
And I thought, look, dude, if we surface mounted a hinge pin on top, surface mounted one on the bottom, I could pivot from here. I could pivot from here. I could pivot from inside. I could put it in the middle.
Open and close
it doesn't matter where I put that hinge pin as long as they're perpendicular from one another.
Right.
So like, dude, we're going to do hinges. There's no hinge like this. It can be surface mounted with no mortising. It's a simple, easy to remove. There doesn't take anything to do it. And I just do a bearing loaded bottom and a bearing loaded top. Dude, it's going to be awesome. Right. So that was our first business, is to create a hinge. I thought I was going to save money, by the way. This is another deal. Yeah. Hey, I'm doing this business. It's going to save me some money. I'm going to make this easy hinge plate. Yeah. It's 1/4 inch steel, and I'm going to get a pin on the top and bottom. It'll be easy. Need an engineer. So here we are, not wanting to spend $300. I spent several $1,000s later to get to my freaking hinge pin.
Perfect.
Right. And then after that, I thought this will be, I never had the idea of leaving fire, by the way. Okay. When I was doing that was never to replace fire.
Okay.
No desire, not the ambition, not the goal.
Did you have a side job at that time?
I did cement, I did tile, I did freaking
just kind of
roofing, a ton of flat work, concrete.
Kind of a jack of all trades and
master of nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And then I taught ACLS. I taught a lot of ACLS classes.
I do remember you teaching ACLS.
A lot. Everywhere, traveled everywhere. Loved ACLS. Advanced cardiac life support, so people know. Yep. But
so you're building this hinge and you come up with an idea. Are you paying to have people do this hinge?
So not yet. We just played with
You're
it on
just doing
a
it
cardboard
yourself.
paper and a nail.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we're like, hey, look at this.
So,
What does
yeah,
it look
yeah.
like? How are we going to screw it? How thick? What's our deflection point? Ran into a dude in Orem, and it's Simtech Hardware. Great kid, Adrian Sosa. Hard to do work with, but a great man. He's like, hey, he's got his engineering background. He has a whole bunch of equipment, and it's kind of a lull in the economy at the time. It's 2012.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, hey, I'm trying to make this. He goes, oh, yeah, we can do that. Came up with some really cool concepts, and he also was using SolidWorks so I could see deflection and the thickness the wood needed to be. Not only that, we had looked at what wood types deflection points were.
Okay.
Right. So even though I'm only building the hinge and I'm not planning on building cabinets,
Yeah.
he's like, hey, what wood types do you think you're going to need? Well, this is plywood's deflection, and this is how it twists. Going back to the door design, he's like, look, we need to put a face frame on it. It needs to be glued on, right?
Yeah.
And also the back needs to be glued and screwed on, not staples. And I know that there's a lot of door builders out there that are stapling because the fasteners of a screw is ugly. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
There
You
is
don't wanna see that.
staplers, and believe me, I'd much rather just put 6 staples in your back of the door
Call
than
it.
I would screw, because it would save me a grundle on doors. So if we were trying to be cheap, we'd use a 1/4-inch Luan with staples. But instead, we're using 1/2-inch back with screws and glue with a face frame that has dowel locators, so they're doweled, brad-nailed, and glued and dried in a clamping position. And here's why. If you're going to just do a bookcase box and you go to load and twist and you go to pivot,
Yep.
what does it? So how do you stop it? Well, you can put a face frame on and glue it. That'll stop some. But remember, doors are 8 to 12 inches thick,
Yeah.
right? So you have to sandwich it in a 1/2-inch back with glues and screws to eliminate the box twist.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's really just a cabinet hanging on a pivot hinge that's acting
Right.
like a door.
Yeah.
So you're getting flex. This is just wood. It's not solid welded steel like a safe door. You're asking wood to perform at a level that's carrying 300 pounds of weight and not twist.
Mm-hmm.
So people, we're easy to emulate. It's a bookcase.
Yeah.
But discredit us if you want. But there's a lot of engineering that may look like a bookcase. And we want that door to last a lifetime.
Yeah.
We guarantee it, right?
Yeah.
We put warranties on it.
Yeah. So if you're gonna be putting lifetime and warranties and guarantee your name on it, you're not gonna be stapling a
Piece of 1/4-inch
piece of
Luan in the
quarter.
back.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't happen.
No.
We have to replace it. It's our brand.
Right.
We're here for the long term. And they can say, hey, you know why we don't use MDF, or we use real wood, which, by the way, is just plywood.
Right.
So he obviously needs some education. Not just him, but most cabinet companies, yes, plywood has its place.
Yeah.
In the bookcase world, it's not always the best answer. We warranty MDF longer than plywood. Right? So you choose. We're happy to have you have either one, but we stand behind this one.
Yeah.
And there's reason.
Yeah.
But you can choose. You do it how you want to do it, and you argue all you want. At the end of the day, I have 100,000 doors out there that I have to warranty. You can have yours be the way you want, because that's
Right.
what you want. But if you want us to stand behind it, based on our knowledge and warranty background
Yeah.
and replacement factors in every single state and multiple nations, like, we had to do this. So that's a long way to get to your
Yeah.
answer, and I didn't mean to get off
So
on a tangent.
so you got the engineer. He's made you guys
Just the hinge.
decided, okay. So now
Great side money, $129. Having this guy building it for 50 some odd dollars. We sold 30 grand in our first year. I make $70 a hinge. So larger than 50%
right.
margin, right?
Okay.
So I go, oh, dude, we made 50 grand. But
So
we,
so at what point did Murphy Door become that?
nobody wanted to build their own door. So Rockler was our customer that bought that much volume in hinges.
Okay.
And they're specializing in people that like doing DIY homewood projects.
Okay. So when did now you have Murphy Door, it's made 30. When did that become like, hey, I could get out of fire and this could take me
Cyclical.
to different. Yeah.
So the next step kind of went in when people started calling and saying, hey, we need cabinets. I didn't want to do a cabinet shop, never built a cabinet. Went to Merrill Cabinets up in Rigby, Idaho. And I asked them, hey, they were slower because of this economy downturn as well. So this is 2013, about middle of the year. We noticed that we had a ton more calls for, can we get the bookcase from you? And not just the hinge, than we had for hinge orders. We still did 100 and some odd thousand that year in hinges or in revenue. But most of it came back down to the out of bookcases. So my across the street neighbor owns a company that sells the CNCs for cabinet companies. And I go, who's slow that maybe could help me do this piece? Line me up with that guy. And we went through different designs. So he sat down on his cabinet work program and designed some bookcases. And then he also did some testing. So he's also kind of a cabinet engineer guy. He's done his whole life is a family cabinet company.
Okay.
Because if you're asking it to carry it with this, you have particle boards, which is usually your melamines. Most people's kitchen cabinets around Utah are particle board, melamine, and maybe a veneer hardwood on the outside, but they all think they have hardwood cabinets. With the exception of your cabinet doors, most likely it's a particle board core. But it's great. It's a perfect material for something that's stationary under a countertop.
Yeah.
Holding boxes. If your cabinets on the inside are white, most generally are particle board.
Particle board.
Right. And then they're hardwood faced, which is a totally acceptable, great cabinet. It's going to be straight forever. It may have a risk of swelling depending on the material they're using. But overall, it's no difference in plywood, and hardwood is just not the right answer. It warps. You've seen hardwood. It twists. Summer and winter is all different, and it follows the lines of the grain. It'll go either direction. So
it could be perfect for the door you're trying to build.
Can't work, right? So Merrill cabinets. They're just talking to the camera. I thought someone was speaking. So we went in and they helped us design it, and they said, "Hey, look, you build the box.
And this is
we'll put the hinges." Yep. So we'd go up there with our little teeny trailer.
Okay.
We'd get orders like, okay, we have 4. They'd make us wait a couple weeks. We'd go up and load 4 doors in. We'd come back, put the hinges on it, put them in a box and ship it to the customer. So Scott Bueller was working with me, Greg Parrish, and Curtis on our little days off. We had a few people then, not because we needed the work, but we have shift rotation.
Yeah.
Like you're A shift, you're B shift, you're C shift, right? So that's kind of how we did it. Then the volume picked up and he got busy too. So he's like, look, dude, I got this big apartment complex. I can't do Murphy door anymore for the price. You're either going to have to up your price or have to look at it. Then we found Trim Art down in Kaysville, and then they took it over. And then we were having them build a knockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So they just do the unassembled components, and then we'd bring them here, assemble them, paint them. And you remember seeing that shop in Pacific. And then after that, Trim Art got busy, and we were waiting too long for quantities, and we just kept growing super fast. Insane gross, right? So like, dude, we can't keep up with you.
So you did build your ticket booth door, right?
Yeah, we did. That was the first real trial.
Do you still have it?
Yeah. Heck yeah, I'll show you.
Okay, I want to see it.
Turned out awesome.
So now you're growing. Murphy door's taking off.
Yep.
People are buying like crazy. You got a new shop. Are you still in fire at this point?
Yeah. Yep.
Still rocking it. You're still rocking
doing fire.
A shift?
I was B shift.
B shift.
Yep. I did A shift for a minute when Matt and Heslop and I went a little sideways for a second.
Yeah.
He got the new captain role and he did his thing and I did mine. So I said, hey, can I bounce?
So you're at Roy Fire.
Yep.
Still rocking it. Now Murphy door's taking off. Is there still a thought that you might leave fire? Or is there even a thought at this point?
So it started to be over demanding. And this is 2016 is when I left Roy Fire, June 2016. And in June of 2016, just to give you conceptually an idea of our size, I think I said it earlier, like 4,800,000.
Okay. So you were
from 2012, right?
This is 2012 to 2016.
2016. So in June of 2016, we were trending at probably 2 million and change.
Okay.
And I told Jason Polson when I was at $5 million trending for a year is when I was planning on leaving. It was just taking too much for my family and taking too much. It wasn't because I wanted to quit Roy.
Right.
It's you kind of create a monster that's starting to need to eat, which is your time. It needs some attention, right?
So when was your first thought of like, hey, you've realized that
it was probably 2015.
So 2015, you were like
just the year before, not 2014 really at all. It was 2015. I mean, I still didn't want to leave fire.
Right.
Like I don't want to leave fire ever. But then all of a sudden your wife, we had a little tough curve there for a bit. Mm-hmm. And then it was the attention. You had some time before. When you have no money, you have time and you have a better relationship, I believe, most of the time.
Yeah.
You have a tighter deal. You can't do as much. You can't be distracted from your family as easy. So she started to get a little frustrated, not a little, a lot frustrated that I'm never home. And she started keeping a little day planner and saying, look, last month you worked 400 and I think it was like 86 hours. I go, okay. She goes, there's 700 and something. in a month. I'm like, okay. She goes, when you were home, you got home at 11:30. You woke up at 4:30. So when you got home, the kids were asleep on this day, and you went to bed, and then you woke up before the kids left. So you didn't see your kids. I said, you came home, or I got home one night, and I'd just gotten back from Kentucky. Had my luggage. The only thing that came to say hi to me was my dog. My wife had her earbuds in. She was mopping the floor. My daughter was playing on my wife's iPad.
Yep.
Or I think it was it was an iPad. So she walks by, doesn't even look at me. Annie's 5. Like, my dad? So I got really frustrated. I'm like, you guys not even going to say freaking hi? The only thing that's going to come say hi to me is Ruger. Like, he's the only one that cares I'm home.
Yeah.
She takes her earbud out of her ear. She goes, if you want us to carry your home, don't be just a visitor. Be a dad.
Oh.
I'm like, ooh, all right.
That took a shot, huh?
So then it really curved with me. And this was probably in 2015-ish. So then I'm starting to say, okay, this is starting to get too much.
Yeah.
Right. And then Jason, I was having that whole problem at home. So I went and visited with Jason Polson kind of on the counseling side. He's like, what's going on? You're off on attitude, kind of. Like I said, he had some really good points too. And I've been hard.
Which I just figured you had a bad attitude all the time.
I know there's this glimpse sometimes that I have a good one. So he just said, look, you got to realize. And then it was early into June of 2016 that he showed me that example. But I was kind of going back and forth. He goes, dude, family takes time. Like if you're saying that the least important person that needs scheduled time is your family.
Right.
That's all that means.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And all these kind of hurt. My wife sits there. She can act like my mother sometimes. She sits there and says, hey, be a dad. If you want your kids to say hi, be more than a visitor.
Yeah.
Because they just, he's here. I don't know when he's leaving. I don't know when he's coming home.
Yeah.
Right. And so there was some hard relationship pieces and dad learnings and kids understanding.
Yeah.
To really do it.
Yeah. So as soon as you realize like, hey, my rock is taking a hit, then you had to put that into your head of something's got to go.
That's where it started.
And at that point, I mean, obviously Murphy door can't go, right?
Right.
Now, when you're like, okay, it's dawned on me, I'm leaving fire. How was that? Like, what was the thought process of you having to leave? Like, you knew you were going to leave fire.
I shouldn't say it was even my thought. It really wasn't until Jason pointed out the rock.
Yeah.
Right? Because it wasn't in June that he did that. It was probably early in February, March.
Okay.
He's like, this is your world and it's going to blow up. It's going to all fall apart. But if it blows up with your heavy rock in the center, the other two don't matter.
Right.
But if it blows up with the heavy rock on the outside, you lose it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it made sense to me, right? Like everything would just scatter everywhere. If it was in the middle, the outside distractions didn't matter. Right. Right. So what if you lose Murphy, Door, and Roy?
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, you got your family.
Yeah. The problem is you didn't want to get that so uneven that when it blew up, you lost your family.
Right.
You could lose the other two, fine, but you're still gonna have your family. So that's kind of the point where I was, is that
you had to decide it.
Yeah. And I didn't know how. And I didn't know if anything.
I don't know if you know how.
Yeah. No,
It was Jason forcing me to talk my way through it. Mm-hmm. Saying, hey, look, this is what you need to think about. Like, yeah, maybe that's why he makes such a good politician. There's some levels that he's good at it. But he helped me understand or look at it from a different perspective to where I could look inward and realize, even though I don't want to leave fire, like, I'm going to retire from here. I kept telling him that, by the way, in early 2016. Like, there's no way. He goes, you can't make it here that long. I go, dude, I promise you, I can do it. I can hire roles. I can stick this out. He's like, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You won't be able to.
Right.
And so that's where he helped bring awareness and understanding. And even though he's to my younger, he had his points that were really good. And he'd been through a marriage before and he understands kids' time and he understands it. Right.
Yeah.
So
listening to Lewis Weaver when he was on the podcast, great guy. Love that dude. I met him.
He's freaking amazing.
Yeah. Like he doesn't even know, but I've listened to that podcast. He taught me a lot.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Isn't that funny?
And I loved listening to him. And it's just hearing other firefighters having to go through that point of
decision-making process.
I'm going to have to
let my family go.
I'm gonna have to figure something out here because this is taking over, and I'm trying to balance too much. I'm trying to put my hand in too many different pots. It's not gonna work. And like hearing it and hearing the success and the happiness that you guys are at, that's something that I truly was like, you know, I could be there, and that it's hard.
I wouldn't say the happiness level changes. It's different.
Yeah, that's fair. Different.
It's different because you have such happiness here, and there's such happy. Even in no money, there's so much. They're not related.
Yeah, no. The point being that you guys are
happy with the decision.
Yes, the situation you're in is you're still happy.
Doing it.
Yeah, everything is. So seeing that like it's successful and you guys, you still miss that. Yeah, that's always going to be a part of my life. But to know that I'm leaving it to make sure I can keep that rock centered,
right,
and still have something that's going to grow us more, do more for us, or take us to that next level or new heights. It's comforting to find that you guys have already done it,
and other people are there, and
yeah,
we're going to have the same struggles. You're going to have struggles. You're going to go, why the crap did I do this? This was so stupid.
Yeah,
I can't make this payment, and I could have if I would have just had my fire check. You'll have it.
Yeah. And there's a friend that texted me this morning at 5 a.m.
Was it me? You keep looking at me like I did it.
No.
Did I do that again? I'm really sorry.
He's at work.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And he just sent me a picture of the red light. That's what happens when
you get a call.
We get a call and the red light goes off, wakes you up. He sends that to me, and I was like,
"Don't miss that."
I'm fine with that. Yeah. I was like, are you trying to talk me out of it? I don't know what you were doing right there, but
I miss you on this call.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Hey, don't worry. The Netflix commercial came on and I had my eyes closed, so it looked like the red light. So I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
You know,
I was like, oh man, I was like, don't miss that part. But there are parts that obviously I'm going to miss. Like you probably understand that, like the messing with dudes in the middle of the night, or like,
oh yeah. IV drips through the ceiling.
We had a Chuggy doll at Roy that put in the hallway, and it looked terrifying.
Yeah, it was scary.
It was terrible. But yeah, I was just going through that process of knowing that you're gonna leave a job that
you love.
You know
what's weird? So here it is, 6 years later since I left Roy, full time. What's funny is as the time gets further away, the only calls I remember are the best ones.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten all about Heritage Park. I've forgotten all about all these other terrible, horrific phone calls. I mean, not even, I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, the same patient multiple times because they just can't stop eating or whatever, right? You forget all those really, hey, how's it going, Colt? What did you do today? Did you remember just to go poop? Like, bottom line is, I know your belly hurts, but you always hold it too long. Like, let's just try this first, right? Those calls that are really mundane.
Yeah.
And here, 6 years later, the only calls I have a tendency to remember are those. So it kind of romanticizes even further as you stay away.
Yeah.
Because you drop all those bad memories, right?
I can't wait for that.
Well, it will happen. And then you're going to be like, man, that career was so freaking amazing. I never had anything bad. It was always busy. I just remember going on great call after great call, and it was just like freaking 51 all over again. You know, like the old TV show. Yeah. It feels like it's so awesome all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess that does kind of help too, because as you get out, it's like, it was such a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that, you're forgetting all the little transfers to Provo, to Idaho, to whatever, like that are non-emergent. They may be emergent at the hospital's eyes, but it's not a traffic accident in the middle of a snowstorm on the freeway.
Right.
Right. Or like this one that happened today that's horrific. Like you don't get that. It's really taking a patient with a broken arm to another patient, or, you know, I mean, to another place, or somebody that's in long care, go to the VA, which they need it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, they've been here since, why didn't you call me at 8 o'clock at night or instead of 2 a.m? Like, I'm happy to participate, but your timing sucks.
Yeah. You're going, they've been here for how long?
And you're waiting till I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Like I just barely fell asleep.
They do it on purpose.
So you'll forget all those.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. But at the same time, it really makes you want to go back.
Yeah.
Because it's all romanticized.
There's always those calls that you remember, and then you did something after that. Yeah. There's good calls.
So anyway, that's it. Like truly, there was no switch for me. No switch.
Nothing.
No, it wasn't like I'm going to plan on
like,
leaving. There's no like, it was just an awareness factor that my rest of my world was falling apart.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The rest of the world's going down. So
And that's kind of, I can't speak for everybody that's left the fire service for something like this, but that's kind of where it was I finally was aware of what was around me, or I wasn't around me. Like, I've always wanted to coach my kids. Huge in football, like, but there's always, during the season, I couldn't be a head coach. I couldn't be like the coach that I wanted to be.
You're not around.
Because I can't be around. I can for a couple days, maybe 2 or 3 of the days if I'm not working my other jobs or if I'm ignoring Crown. But I couldn't give everything to that coaching position.
Which you have to
So
be
I
if you
stopped.
choose that
Yeah,
spot.
so I stopped. But I just had to be dad, and that killed me. Even though that, like, just being at the game should have made me happy, but it killed me that I couldn't be on the, like, next to my kid, because I know I can do it.
Right.
And this year, finally, once we decided, I was like,
taking the role.
I'm coaching. So now I'm coaching Roy Lacrosse with my oldest son, Tayden.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been out there. I was like, why have I not done this sooner? But I think the timing aspect of everything that came into play had a big.
You have to
do
exit
with it.
emotionally first.
Yeah.
You have to prepare yourself.
Yes.
It's like, look, I'm going to be ready to leave. I need to absolutely prepare myself for this exit. Kind of the guy we talked to today. It's a slow separation. And even though the one we were talking today, I don't even think he's convinced himself at all that he wants to leave.
He hasn't.
But he's getting the pressure from his wife,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is going to be the deciding factor.
Yep.
Always. So it was interesting to see that, because you related instantly. I related instantly. We're like, oh,
yeah, we
crap.
instantly looked at each other.
We're
and was like, oh, okay.
I remember this talk.
Yeah.
I remember this talk. We're
Yep.
like, hey, we got to be. I felt for him, because it's like, but I love it here, and talking about
Yeah.
changing departments, but I love it here. Almost like, and I think sometimes brotherhoods are super important.
Yeah.
Our shift is super important.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we also give that too much credibility. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I can't leave my shift. You're going to get left anyway when they do shift change,
Right.
right? Or
And-
you're going to have a transfer or a promotion.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get shifted. And at the same time, you're rebuilding a whole new rapport with these other people anyway.
Yeah.
So don't let that be the piece. Let you be the piece with,
Mhm.
or let your wife's support be it.
Yeah.
It was funny to watch. And even then, you never thought you'd break up with your shift.
Right.
Like you're just such comrades, and the camaraderie is so strong. They're like, oh, we're buddies forever.
Oh, yeah.
I have to go to B shift tomorrow. Hey, Cole, how come you not answer my phone call? Cole,
I'm on
call me
B-
back.
I'm on B shift.
Come on, call. Hey, wait, are we gonna hang out? No, you're on the wrong shift.
Yes.
Why? And it's not because you're against the shift.
No.
It's your days off are different,
Yeah.
and timing's different, and it's just a weird world that we give
Yeah.
a little bit too much
Yeah.
leverage. on.
That is the craziest part, is like I had to prepare emotionally. Like I didn't even think about actually preparing, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go do it. I'm pumped. Let's do
Yeah,
this.
for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah. And then I
Don't
was
tell
like,
anyone. I'm just pumping myself into it.
Yeah. And I was like,
Did I tell anybody? I did.
I
Crap.
think I'm going to quit. Am I going to quit? Then finally it was
Pretty easy. When the decision's made.
It was
Well, it's
easy.
hard.
It was easy until I sat at the desk, and actually Slater's the one that brought me to Ogden. He's the one that talked me into it.
So did you go to his office?
Yeah, so I went to his office, and he sat down, and I'm like, he's like, is this like, because I just told him I wanted to talk. He's like, is this a closed door meeting? I'm like, yeah, I'll close the door. So I close the door and I go to sit down. And he goes, you're not quitting on me, are you? He's like, oh.
It's all right. Let me tell you about Slater. He quits early on the treadmill, on the weightlifting, on the effort. Just teasing.
What?
I know he's
I'm
weak.
gonna- I'm
Bless his
gonna-
heart. I love the
Yeah.
guy, but honestly, he's
I'm gonna
super
get him.
easy to beat. Like, I'm like, how you made Chief in your 3-minute exercise?
Yeah.
And he does it halfway. Like, you know how you're supposed to do full. His
Yeah.
are like this little mini thing.
His little one.
I'm like, how do you even get the machine to stop at that cycle? Like, he looks like a grandpa. Just
Yeah.
No, he's really good. I just have to throw one in the
It really was. It was like when I sat
be a
down,
hard
I
one
was
to
like,
quit.
oh man, like he made it hard. Like I was like, I still got to do this. But he was super cool about it. Like he's like, I can't fault anybody that wants to make their life better. He's like, I'm not like. So he was
gets
super
it.
awesome. Let me know that I'm welcome back.
He's been on
and-
day shift
yeah.
for how long, right?
Yeah,
Freaking quitter anyway.
I told him I
Just
was gonna buy him a saddle
Yeah.
for how hard he rides that desk.
You could do like,
Please make it comfortable.
get him a bull rope.
A bull rope, perfect.
Hold on.
Does
Hey.
he tell you he watches these?
Oh yeah.
This was scripted.
Yeah, it was. I just like you were afraid to come on, Chief. Colt was like, "You're going to bury me," and I said, "Yeah, you're right." But I know you're scared, and I get it. But you shouldn't be.
You don't need.
I understand you're a little on the weak side. You need a little bit more effort at the gym. The belly's looking better, but it's still half or twice my size. Nonetheless,
When he was working out with me at West Haven,
he was really fat.
Oh, he
Seriously,
was getting in
huge.
good shape. And then he got this job,
At desk.
and he went down.
So everyone can visualize what Mike Slater. I mean, so he's bald on top. He looks like he could be fit, but when he gets up, we're talking about that guy on Popeyes. I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
What's that girl? What's Violet? Violet after she eats the grape.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate.
The Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, so you guys will know when you get to fire school. He's the balding, aging, looking heavy guy.
Heavy.
You'll see his pickup. Slight tilt.
Slight tilt, and then it settles when he gets out.
Just tease him, Mike. No, he's freaking awesome. Yeah, he's a fit dude.
Yeah.
I'm just giving him a hard time. He outworks me every
Yeah,
day
he's
at the
a
gym. He does freaking awesome. But
I love him.
it'd be hard to quit to that guy. And it'd be
It
hard to
was.
quit to your guys.
It was.
It's hard to quit at the station. It's a whole new life.
Yeah.
It's a whole different perspective. You'll miss it more.
To step in a realm where I'm no longer a firefighter.
Yeah, you are. You're part-time.
I'm part time.
Yeah.
That's true.
But that's not a degradation.
An Ogden fire. No.
Yeah, you're not an Ogden City fireman. And people sometimes, especially in the full-time world, and I understand, let me go put this in a county that a lot of the volunteer counties, they have a dedication. They do what we love for free.
Mhm.
We get that.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, there's a little bit too much confidence that occurs in some of those. And I'm not trying to say anything derogatory. All I'm saying, well, we do full-time fire and you do part-time. Well, we're doing it for free because we love it. And that is true. But the skill set that you'll experience in departments, from people that run thousands of calls a year to people that run tens of calls a year, is dynamically different. And there is a risk factor that lies into that a little bit. And again, not trying to hammer anyone. I volunteered too before full-time. I get the emotion, the feeling, the tie back.
Oh yeah.
But when you get to really busy departments like Ogden or Roy, or these departments that just run nonstop, there is a system that we build in to really protect ourselves and to protect our partners.
Yeah.
That we don't have the opportunity to build in a volunteer world where you run to an engine and jump in and you meet on a call and you don't know how each other react. And there's no system, and there's always a hierarchy argument, kind of like, I'm the boss. Well, there's no boss. We're all volunteers.
Yeah.
Well, chain of command is important in high risk scenarios. And I think it's important, whether it be the newest guy or the oldest guy, that takes the lead role.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be someone. And Morgan used to have that. They kind of did away with lead role mostly. But they do it more on, advanced or non-advanced EMT kind of thing. But I think we get comfortable in part-time as well. So what the unique spot I've been in, worked part-time in South Davis, worked at Layton. I worked at Morgan volunteer. I worked at Roy full-time. I worked at Weber part-time. So I've seen a few of the different perspectives. And when you're a full-time firefighter, you're like, part-timers don't get it. And that is true. Our skill set drops tremendously. I was a very good paramedic. I felt like I did a good job at it I ran a lot.
Say mediocre.
We'll say mediocre, but that's pretty good for me.
Yeah, no.
For me, I did really good. I made it all the way to at least a pink patch. But I felt like I was comfortable. I could run a call. I felt confident. I made good decisions, at least with the help of a good partner. But at the same time, now you go to part-time.
Yeah.
You don't have the volume of calls. You don't have the consistency of repetition of skill set. Even though you've run it 1,000 times, as the time goes on, your confidence drops because you were so good at this without having to look for something. It was just habitual.
Right.
And then I take that and then you divide it by a multiplier for volunteers in the time, in the quantity of calls. And I'm not saying about ability or nothing, but you lose this repetition piece. And there can be a risk when people get overconfident in their skill set. And I don't mean a risk to the patient, although there will be, but we can put ourselves into undue risk or undue harm. Like we don't even see it. And so when you see what you have, that you volunteered and how you felt, Like, what do I need a paramedic? I know I can do anything and everything that they can do.
Yeah.
You can do the skill set, but you don't know really why you're choosing the algorithm you're choosing. You work the algorithm fine, but there was some education you got to understand the algorithm and what the reaction is going to be on your action, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you can do the skill set. Yes, you understand why, but there's some formulas, just like in the t-shirt world. Yes, you can print a shirt, but there's things that do it better or not.
Yeah.
And you understand what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so you see what volunteers did, you see what part-times did, and now, or full-time did, and now you can kind of see both sides. Like, man, I understand a little bit. When I was a full-timer, I had a hard time working with part-timers, and you felt like you're just part-time.
Yeah.
Right. And then now you're part-time again. And I can see why now, from having this wide array of experience in all different facets of the fire service.
Yeah.
Like, man, I was pretty naive as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the naive part-timer. So I am happy to turn over even to somebody that's newer. Like, dude, you run this all the time. I am happy to be your underling. And it's not that I don't want to do the job set.
Oh yeah.
But you're just proficient. And I got to break the old rusty bolts loose to get it done.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited to go. So I got hired at Mountain Green. Matt Lee actually is the one. He came into the shop with some orders. He needed a hat.
So he went to work with Matt Lee.
Yeah, so we were talking. He's like,
is he just part-time or is he?
Yeah, so he's part-time up at Mountain Green, and he actually is the one that told me about that they're hiring. Like,
good.
I'm gonna do that.
They have great calls up there.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
It's a pretty busy. I mean, not necessarily. It's pretty slow, but the calls are intense.
That's what I've heard. It's
high speed.
When there's calls, there's a big call.
It's a big call. Yeah. So you'll see that. Anyway, again, this is Colton Call. I'm Jeremy Barker. This is 90 Proof Wisdom. If you like it, great. Hit the subscribe button, please. We need more subscribers. Share it with your friends if they have anything to learn. If you don't like it, say it. We don't mind that either. Constructive criticism, although we don't read it. No, really, we do. is extremely important to us. So we love y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we wish you the best luck in whatever endeavor you choose. Have a good day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Hopefully there was a takeaway for you. If you like what we're doing or even our efforts, tell your friends about it. Let us know what we could do better. Again, thank you for listening to 90 Proof Wisdom Podcast. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button.